Okay, g'day walkers. This is the bloke who walks. Happy February. So, this is the commentary for the 3-hour video,
Welcome to this walking life.
which
This
is
morning we're in
the
Melbourne, Australia, and
centerpiece
today we're
showcase
walking from the centre of Melbourne,
of the
starting at
International
Victoria
Student
University's
Series.
Flinders
So,
Lane campus,
I'm going to do something
and we're
different for the
walking to
first
RMIT
time with
University,
any of these
and then we're going to the Nova Cinema in
commentaries.
Carlton,
I'm actually going to
and from the
commentate
Nova
as I'm
Cinema
looking
to
at the
Melbourne
screen, watching the
University,
video.
and then
Because what I
on
want to
to
do
finishing at the
is I
Queen
want to
Victoria Market.
explain and narrate why I have chosen
Let's go.
to walk this
Some of the
particular route,
institutions that I'll be featuring
why
on
I
this
have
walking life
chosen to
Victoria
film these
University,
particular
Melbourne University,
locations,
RMIT
why I
University,
decided to
Bourke
walk
Street,
from
and Monash University.
the
And
Yarra
of
River,
course, I
basically
can
from
cater
Flinders
to any
Street, all the
special
way up
requests.
to
A lot of
Parkville to Melbourne
information
University,
about
back to
safety
Queen
in
Victoria
Melbourne,
Market, and
how to
finishing
live
at
in Melbourne, how to
Flagstaff.
find
I was
accommodation
nearly
in
going to
Melbourne, how
use
to
this.
travel
This video
safely
is
around
3 hours
Melbourne.
long, and I was nearly going to use this video to go through every single tip and technique that I've picked up from big YouTube channels, all those people who tell you how to create YouTube videos and all this success that you'll have by following their tips. And I was going to, there's quite a few of them, about 20. I was going to go through all those. I've tried all of them. I've implemented all of them. And I was going to go through and one by one and say, yep, tried this, did this, hasn't worked. Um, so I'll just quickly get that out of my system to say that I've been, it's 4 months. The 1st of October 2020, this channel launched, and we're currently in Flinders Street looking at the 75 tram that's about to go past underneath the watchful logo of Victoria University. And look, to be honest, the stats for this channel after 4 months are nowhere near what I thought they would be. I'm barely getting 20 views. If you know your analytics, the real-time analytics updates, it's a 48-hour window. I'm barely getting between 20 to 25 views over that 48 hours. I'm barely getting between 1.5 hours to 2 hours of watch time every week. And as of today, I am 30% down on my total watch time for the month of February. So instead of around 5.8 hours, I've got 4.4 hours as of today. So the reason I thought I would narrate, commentate on the footage for a change for the first time, because this video is also, I just, this channel is all about promoting Melbourne. I think Melbourne is the best city in the world. I would like to live somewhere else, but everything I like about lifestyle, getting around, outside of, never mind family and friends, but for me, Melbourne is home, and Melbourne is a great place to show off. So here we are. I'll start narrating. So Victoria University, and I used to work at Victoria University. Um, I used to work at it's called Victoria International, Victoria University International. I worked in the international student education sector for 3 years there at VUI, and I had another 4 months at Monash University a couple of years later. I'd never worked in that sector before, and it kind of appealed to me. I enjoyed that job. I really enjoyed it. There's something noble about working in uh, international education. The, the 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 sector is the third biggest export prior to COVID. Australia's third biggest export market. Big dollar earner. It's really big business, but Victoria University, it's no secret, it runs on the smell of an oily rag. Now, I was nearly going to go down that laneway, and I decided not to, because we're showing the best of Melbourne, and you can't smell that laneway off this video. So there's a transition. I took a bit of extra care in the edit for this video that I decided the wobbles that would come as I raised the camera to take a more distinct shot. I decided to transition those out, so that's how that edit came to be there. Except for that bit you just saw there. So I decided that I wanted to show off. Victoria University is actually based, the main campus, the big campus is in the western suburbs of Melbourne, but the international student campus is in the city. And Victoria University likes to bang on that they've got a city campus, a city lifestyle, but actually not many classes are held there. They've got their English Language Institute. Now, the other reason I loved working at Victoria University International was because it was right next to Flinders Street station. Just had to roll off the train every morning. 20 seconds walk to the office, 20 seconds walk from my home station to my front door. What a great lifestyle, and surrounded by all the best that the city has to offer outside of work hours. So here we are in Elizabeth Street at the tram terminus there, and uh, this part of the city, it's not seedy, but it's just so dirty and so busy. A couple of summers ago, they decided to shut all this roadway and just put in grass on the right hand side of the camera. You can see the road's blocked off there, but that's for works for the metro tunnel to the right of screen, just up the road. And oh, you wouldn't want to know, like any modern city these days, Melbourne has a homeless population, and they're all just sleeping on the fake grass in Elizabeth Street. It was terrible. Anyway, so here we are crossing back over, and I've got this technique where I like to cross the road, weave backwards and forwards, left to right, as I'm walking down the street or walking down a straight stretch of road or footpath, because I think it makes it more interesting for the camera. Um, so Flinders Lane here. You can just see. I forgot to tilt the camera right up, so you can see the Y in the top left corner of the screen. Victoria University. This is actually an old. The building that Victoria University has here. It's actually a former police station. It's the former building for the city cops. They moved up the road one block away further east, and they've just shut that station and they've gone and created a brand new station at Melbourne West on the corner of Trobe Street and Spencer Street if you need any cops in the city. They've also got a cop shop in the Bourke Street Mall. So here we are at 301 Flinders Lane. It's the head office of Victoria University International. That's where they do all their international student recruitment. Well, actually, I should put a disclaimer here. I haven't worked there for. I haven't been there since 2011, so things no doubt will have changed. But they've still got a lot of the things. The VUHQ, the director of VUI, was mad keen on making sure that there was some new branding put up. He finally got his way by the looks of it. That's the walkway. I transitioned that because I spent about 40 seconds filming that laneway. Now, for this video, I've implemented some new ways of presenting the material. So what I decided to do was I've got an intro. You will have seen it where I've filmed myself. I've put in something different.
You're right.
I want to try and change it up. I'm trying to adhere to that principle of making people watch for the first 30 seconds, and I'm succeeding there. Pretty much every single video does get, maybe 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5 hits. People will watch the first 30 seconds. I was a bit lazy with the edit there by the looks of it. We're just crossing back and around, and in a second it's going to cut to a piece to camera, because what I wanted to do, although these are walking videos, I still want to give audio value in the audio, and I decided to uh, cut in uh, to the audience that I think is
Thanks for watching
the
this video.
audience for this particular content
Perhaps you're
is
the
the
parent of an
parents
international student
of
who's considering
international
coming to
students,
Melbourne
because
in
I know for
Australia
a fact
to study for
that
their
when
first degree of
students are looking at
vocational
universities
education.
and courses in their home country and they go to these very
I can
big
offer a lot of
fairs, which are attended
information
by
about
universities from
safety in
all around the
Melbourne,
world,
how to
it's
live
the
in
parent
Melbourne,
who
how to
often
find
drives the
accommodation in
decision
Melbourne, how to travel
of
safely
where
around
the kid's going to
Melbourne. This
study,
walking life,
because, of
it offers a
course,
lot
the
more. It
parents
offers
are
information
pretty
about
much always
culture,
paying for these things,
sport, art,
unless the kid
events,
gets a
food,
scholarship.
lifestyle,
So what I
hospitality,
wanted to do is
and
mix it
most
up a bit here and
importantly,
talk to
how
the
to get
camera.
around.
I
And I'll be
filmed this
delivering that
in
on a regular
November,
basis
the
to this
first week of
channel.
November
I've seen many international
2020, which
students
was just after
enjoy
our 4-month
studying and
lockdown.
living in Melbourne, and I have
And
no doubt that
all
you
this was
children
just off the
will as
cuff.
well.
Basically,
Some of
I
the
want to
institutions that
highlight
I'll
that
be featuring on this
um,
walking life
this
are
this
Victoria
is
University, Melbourne
a
University,
video that tries to
RMIT
make out
University,
present
Bourke
how to
Street
get
and
around
Monash
Melbourne easily,
University. And of course,
introduce the
I can
universities.
cater for any respective question.
I forgot to
I
put in
also
the
have a
titles
very
there
broad
explaining that
knowledge
that
of
was
the
Whitehorse
international
Road, Box
tertiary
Hill,
sector in
which is
Melbourne
heavily
and Australia.
populated by
I
Asians,
know many of
Chinese,
the major
Koreans,
players. I
Japanese,
know how to network within that
and Box Hill TAFE, of course. But I really wanted to hone into
Australia
this
has proven itself
by
to
the
be
time I
one
got
of
around to
the
editing, which was
best
in
equipped to
January
deal with the challenges
21. I really wanted to hone into
presented
this
by the coronavirus
idea
epidemic.
that Australia is an incredibly safe place
And in this
for international students to
coronavirus
study, but it
environment that the
seems
world is
that
currently
with
going through and
Australia's
dealing with, you can be sure
international
that
borders
Australia,
closed,
in particular in
that
Melbourne City,
a lot of
Australia is one of the
international
safest
students are
places
starting to choose
that you can be
Canada
living.
and the UK, and Europe, because they've still got
Today
borders open. Well,
the
they did in
6th of November
January. The
2020.
UK has just closed their
It was
borders.
only 4 months ago
But
that Melbourne
why would you choose to go
recorded
to a country
725
to
active
study by
cases of
yourself where
coronavirus.
you
The
know for a
same
fact
day,
that the
750
COVID cases
were
are high, the
recorded
COVID
as
deaths are
active
high?
cases in
A
Britain.
lot of the UK universities, I know for a fact, have been
You don't
locked
have to
down.
do
The
too much
campuses have been
research
locked down.
or be living under a rock
Students are
to
studying
know what
from their
happened next.
rooms
Melbourne
on
has
campus.
successfully stamped out the virus. As of today, we've had 6
Why would
days
you
in a
not come
row
to
with
Australia if
no
you had the
active
choice, where you
cases
know that the
and
government
no deaths.
and the health system
What
is
better
doing
place to send
such a
your
great
child
job
in
that we
2021
still have yet
or any
to
time
have
in the
more than
future
900
to
people
study,
die in the
knowing that they'll
last
be
year
safe,
from
protected
COVID,
by Australia's
uh,
pragmatic
COVID
health
illnesses
and political leadership.
cases. So this is what I'm trying to drive home to the audience,
Thanks for watching this
um,
video.
and I decided to keep
The
in
journey
this
of 1,000 steps starts with a
audio,
walk.
presentation to
If you and
camera.
your child are
Um,
considering studying in Australia,
and
I hope you'll share
I've
that journey
decided
and that
this is
walk
the first
with
of
this
3
walking
because I'm
life.
visiting in
So
this particular
subscribe,
video. The
and
reason
I'll
it
see you in
is
the next
3 hours
video.
long is because I'm walking from the centre of the city to each of these campuses: Vic Uni, RMIT, you'll see it on screen, Melbourne Uni, and now the fun begins. So this is the fun part for me, is I wanted to walk through the city. I didn't want to walk down I just didn't want to walk straight down the main thoroughfares of Melbourne, because we've seen all that. I wanted to show off, my favourite shortcuts, my favourite little known places to walk through Melbourne, and show that, you know this is this is this is the knowledge that a local can impart uh, of their home city. So, 303 Collins Street is a tower that houses a lot of very big deal, mainly human services, service type businesses. Um, Up here on the left, you'll see the logo there behind the escalator program maintenance services, and another little insight into my background is I had 6 months there as a person writing tenders and bids. They do facilities maintenance services, which is basically they look after the upkeep of grounds, lawns, busted pipes for big institutions. So uh, I won't go into too much detail there because here's our first encounter with a tram on Collins Street. There's three routes. There's the 112 to Brunswick. There's the 109. Um, there's the 109 to Port Melbourne, and there's the 48, which never used to go up Collins Street. It always used to go up Spencer Street. But then one of our famous state premiers decided to put some new tram tracks up Spring Street, and over the years that tram no longer goes up Flinders Street and Spencer Street. And so here we are, all of a sudden we've crossed Collins Street, and here's one of Melbourne's famous laneways. And so this was filmed in the first week of November 2020, and this is about 10 o'clock in the morning, I think. Uh, Maybe it's late morning, but then normally this laneway would be pulsating. You would be rubbing shoulders with people going this way and that, coming in and out of all these cafes. Um, and this is just my way of showing you, the viewer, the effect that COVID's had on the city of Melbourne. You can see that there's more of these push bike food delivery drivers than office workers and people. And the reason you don't see many people in my videos to date is because I'm very respectful. Like I don't think it's fair to sort of walk towards someone and just point the camera at them when they're just sitting minding their own business and in a bit of a daydream, taking a break from work. If they're walking towards me, fair enough, that's fair play. But I don't actually like, pointing the camera at people. I like to be respectful. If they cross in front of me like that guy just did, as we get to Little Collins Street. Now the Galleria, I'm going to stop myself here. Now the reason I focus on the Galleria, and it is. It is one of the few ways you can get through from Collins Street, Little Collins Street, to Bourke Street. So this particular building houses an office tower that is actually formerly known as the State Bank, which was an institution owned by the government for 148 years until the early 90s, when it went bust. Its merchant banking arm lent out some money to a bloke who said, "I'll give you all my ship containers and the contents of those ship containers as security." And guess what? there was nothing in the ship containers. So during the 90s, during that horrible recession, the merchant bank went bust, and guess what? The government took over. The state bank went bust. The government took over the state bank, and eventually the losses were so big that they sold the state bank to the Commonwealth Bank, and the Commonwealth Bank now owns that tower that you just saw, that I pointed the camera upwards through the roof at. And another another little insight about me is that my first job out of high school was 8 years hard labour in the state bank. And I don't work in banking or finance anymore. I did 8 years hard labour with numbers and customers, and I couldn't, I couldn't wait to get out. It took me 8 years to figure out how to get away from banking. Um, but I love working for the state bank. And the Galleria. This was one of the first big '70s modern towers in Melbourne, and um, this whole building was full of State Bank staff, from this level right up to the top, the CEO and the board. Um, and down below, I would love to film and show all of the viewers in Australia and overseas the old, um, uh, not the Galleria. Oh, what was it called? I can't believe I've forgotten the name of it. Anyway, it was this huge, it's the banking chamber, of course, this huge banking chamber with about 60 tellers, marble floors, marble columns. You could take the escalators down below to safe deposit area. And hidden behind the safe deposit area for staff was a huge staff canteen where you could get really cheap hot meals at any time of day, until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You could go in on your day off even if you wanted to. You didn't have to show your card. There was, this was back in the 80s, and things were a lot more relaxed. Now, as the camera pans round to the right, you'll see that yes, there is some. What the Commonwealth Bank did was that. Well, it's all happening all over the world, I guess, as we look down to the GPO and the Bourke Street Mall. That they filled in that Galleria. They put in a false roof, and they put shops in those soaring uh, um, open area in the roof, and they closed it all off. It's all boring retail now with all try-hard retail shops selling clothes that nobody wants to buy in normal times and nobody can buy in COVID times. And it's very sad because it was a great showpiece of workmanship and crafting, and but it was built in I think it was finished in the early 70s. It was and you can see that is the dead centre of Melbourne, right there, the Bourke Street Mall. I took my time getting over the road. I wasn't too sure where that truck was going, and coming up to Hardware Lane, but the camera's going to pan round to the left, and I wasn't too sure if this guy was going to tell me to stop filming, because they get very nervous, these construction guys. A lot of them don't like the idea of a camera accidentally filming them and their wife seeing their ex-wife, or someone chasing them for alimony or money. Now that building used to host just a simple building, and it used to be a hardware store called McEwen's. And it was only a few years ago that that site was developed into a tower, and suddenly it's been redeveloped. The development's been redeveloped already, and you see the result there. Now, I don't know what they're going to put in that gaping hole in the building, and the only thing I can think of is that they're going to put trees in there. Anyway, so here we are in Hardware Lane. We've gone through 3 city blocks, and again, you know, here's the effects of COVID on life in the centre of Melbourne. That this Hardware Lane would be teeming, pulsating with lots of office workers going to lunch. Lots of this. I've chosen completely. I don't know what I was thinking. I was filming this. I've chosen completely the wrong side to film. I know you don't want to see a car park, but again, it was probably I was just being a bit too respectful. I'm a little bit too respectful and passive sometimes in the way I go about things. But I didn't want to film people eating. But this laneway would be bustling and bursting with activity, and clearly it's not. Now, I didn't mean to film this. I know that Study Melbourne Student Centre is there. Naturally, it's closed because of COVID, but it was one of those happy coincidences that I just happened to spot it out of the corner of my eye, and it made sense to film it. Now, I can't tell you, as you see on the sign, a Victorian government initiative, but I can't tell you what sort of service it offers. It's not funded or representative of any university, so I'm assuming it just offers, general advice, or I don't think it sets you up for accommodation or those sort of things. Definitely no English language classes. Now, getting down towards this first section, end of this segment of this particular part of Hardware Lane, and we come up to one of the casualties of COVID. This camera store has been there since the year dot, and I'm sorry to use a cliche, but it's true. And COVID has killed that business. Now, I'm not too sure. That was the first time I saw that they had been closed. second-hand cameras, brand new cameras, camera repairs, camera advice, film, colour film, black and white film processing, the lot. And they gave the great service in there. Now, whether or not they've transitioned to working from home, working from a garage, working from a storage space, or just simply shut down, I couldn't tell you. Um, it's just so sad and just so reflective of so many small businesses around the world, not just Melbourne. Now down here we're into Little Bourke Street, and this street um, generally full of retail businesses with backpacker supplies, any kind of camping, outdoor activity. So anything from camping to clothing to footwear for hiking. Um, uh, Not too many restaurants per se. I was tossing up whether or not to go further down Hardware Lane, but the reason I didn't I, I didn't go down further Hardware Lane to the north there, and I turned right into Little Bourke Street here because I did want to cross over Swanston. That's Elizabeth Street in front of us right now, and uh, I wanted to show you the Myer Emporium because I was really keen with this video. I want to show the parents of prospective international students. I want to show, because I know that there's people that I know that they want to see this type of content because it's reflective of the type of conversations I used to have with my colleagues at Victoria University International, and it's reflective of the material that we used to produce to sell the courses, the undergraduate, the postgraduate, the technical and further education courses, the certificate courses and diplomas in hospitality and building and trades and all those sort of things. As we look south again to the GPO, this is Elizabeth Street again. So you can see we've sort of come from Flinders Street. We've come in a northerly direction, but I'm trying to mix it up, and I'm trying to show just how many different ways there are to get through the city. I mean, it's obvious about the trams. It's obvious about cycling. It's obvious about walking down the main street, trying to keep it interesting, getting up close to the tram there. But there's many different ways to get around Melbourne, and that's the great thing about our city. It's peppered with laneways, peppered with lots of little nooks and crannies that are really interesting to walk through and between and past. There's always something to look at, and that's what I'm trying to capture in this video. That there's just so many different things on offer here. So we've crossed over Elizabeth Street, and again, all these areas you're going to see in this 3-hour video, I've walked not just many times, hundreds of times, and not just as a city worker, as a person that's lived in the inner city, as a kid, as a teenager. I know these streets really well, and it's a shame that little laneway was in such bad shape with works going on, because there's some pretty spiffy restaurant cafes in there. But anyway, so we're trudging up, passing through Myer. We've got Myer retail store on the right and the left. This area has gone through a massive redevelopment in the last 2 to 3 years, where Myer bit the bullet and they decided to renovate that building on the left. It was a rabbit warren. That's the best way to describe it. It was a rabbit warren. It was a building, I don't know what decade it went up in. It could have been the 1920s, it could have been the 1890s. But it was a rabbit warren, and it wasn't straightforward to get through, and they basically gutted, like most of our city buildings these days, and now the suburban ones, they gutted it, and just made it really straightforward. Now this similar, Myer also owned this block of land, they did the same thing, but they went up market with this. And I'm not going to hold back. I hate it. I hate it. I hate. This is about um, under 10 times, under 20 times that I've been into this building. I went in for a look when it opened. I didn't like it. This is I just can't stand this building. It's yes, it's modern. Yes, it's spiffy. Yes, it's clean. But I just don't like it. I'm sorry. I know it, but it's and then it's got all the upmarket retail shops here that you never see people in. You never see anyone in there. You don't know what the price is because there's no prices on anything. Um, but I can tell you why I made an effort to get into this building, the Emporium, the My Emporium, is because what I learnt at Victoria University International in the marketing team there was when we got some feedback from students from overseas, we got a bit of a shock that the feedback is they don't want to see photos or images or pictures or video of Flinders Street Station or the Brighton bathing boxes. They don't want to see Puffing Billy. They don't want to see anything old and historical. They're not interested. They're coming from a lot of them are coming from countries that are uh, the cities are dirty and polluted, and they want to see stuff like this. They want to see the shiny floors. They want to see the bright lights. They want to see. They don't want to see rubbish anywhere, and they want to see things that look expensive, and they want to see these Asian kids. They want to see these brands. They want to see the funky architecture, the brand new. That's all they're interested in. So that's why I made a special effort to come down Little Bourke Street into the My Emporium, and you can see that the bulk of the people around the camera in the My Emporium, and as we cross over Lonsdale Street in front of us into Melbourne Central, you'll see the bulk of the people are Asian students, Asian residents, Asian businesses, and that's just the way it is, basically. Hope needs action to bring change. Oh dear, I wasn't. You'll notice that I don't have a gimbal or a stabilizer. It's a handheld digital camera. I wasn't too sure that I was capturing that sign properly, so I wasn't too worried. Anyway, so we're crossing over Lonsdale Street here. Uh, this is a main bus route. A lot of the suburban buses come from the eastern suburbs into Lonsdale Street and come in from the east and go out the west and terminate at Spencer Street Station, which is to the left of the screen. And in a second, I'm going to turn the camera and I will walk west. I will walk west. The lights aren't going to change. I'm going to walk west. There we go. Facing west now. So the buses go along the left there, head towards Spencer Street, and then they terminate and come back. Now behind that car park is St Francis Church, not Cathedral. St Patrick's Cathedral is up the top of Lonsdale Street. So we're just waiting for the lights to change. Again, I know this area extremely well. Walked it many times. I was taken to St Francis Church on a Sunday morning many times when I was a kid, and that was a big deal. In fact, it was such a big deal. We used to look forward to it, me and my brothers, because they were building Melbourne Central at the time. The underground city loop was built in the 70s when I was a kid in short pants, and they raised that area and they left the shot tower. Now, so I'm trying to just give a sense of the street life, and but I'm going to keep walking through. The idea was to keep walking through all the blocks and show that you don't have to go up the main thoroughfares on the tram or walk up the street. And there's many different ways to get from the city to the inner suburbs. And Melbourne Central, as I just said, was built in the 1970s, I'm just going to check the recording here that it's working, and yes, it is. We're 35 minutes in, so sorry, you've got another 2.5 hours of my voice, if you choose, but you might not. So, I deliberately wanted to get into Melbourne Central and just mix it up a bit, so you can see a very different aesthetic to the Emporium that we just came out of. But the shops are no less presentable. It's very clean, slightly less upmarket shops, but still the brands are there, and different retail offerings. Normally, again, this area pre-COVID in normal times, extremely busy during the day. I've never seen the city like this, as I'm sure if you're viewing from a major city or a major regional hub in any country, I'm sure you've seen the same things. If you're in the UK or Canada, it's February the 23rd today, 2021, that I'm doing this commentary, and my heart goes out to everyone in the UK, everyone in Ireland who's not allowed to go to the pub until May. Um, what's going on in America? That just yesterday they ticked over 500,000 people have died from COVID. It's just the most unbelievable experience to go through, and I wish everyone all the best. And health is the main thing in life, and I'm speaking from experience before COVID. Health is the thing that's most important, because you can't spend money when you're dead or sick or in intensive care. Trust me, I am talking from first-hand experience. So we've taken another right-hand turn. So the destination from here is we're 35 to 40 minutes since we started off at Victoria University International in Flinders Lane, and I'm heading for RMIT University. Basically, it's a very easy walk. It normally would never take 40 minutes to walk from Flinders Lane to RMIT, and most people who in their right mind would walk to RMIT from Flinders Lane, but you can do it, and I'm doing it the slow way. But usually, to get to RMIT from Flinders Lane, you just jump on a tram in Elizabeth Street or Swanston Street. You'd be there in 10 minutes. Especially now, the French operator of Yarra Trams, they took away. They took away so many tram stops. The trams don't have to stop at as many places in the city anymore. So, but then the trouble with that is there's more people living in the city, less tram stops, more people getting on and off at the one place, which means the trams actually don't really run that much faster. So I've taken the time to stop and pause with the camera, and here we are at Swanston Street, Little Lonsdale Street, and that's the main tram terminus outside Melbourne Central. The tram terminus straddles Swanston Street, and we've got the State Library in front of us. And to the right is the Queen Victoria, not hospital, but it's the old Queen Victoria Hospital site, which is now a retail precinct. And just get those girls out of the way with their trolleys. And the State Library, luckily for me, for the last couple of years, the State Library's been undergoing a facelift and a clean-up, and thank goodness the scaffolding is down, finally. It's just in time for me to walk past with my little camera. So, there's been scaffolding and all sorts of works going on. The government, a few years ago, the government, as we approached these hipsters with their skateboards, their scooter. Oh dear. The state government decided to spend a bit of money doing some maintenance on the state library, and thank God they did, because the state library it wasn't built in one hit. It's evolved over the years, and that those columns are actually add-ons. This whole front part to the state library actually wasn't part of the original building. Actually. But what was part of the original building, I believe, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, and you can Google me and tell me I'm wrong in the comments, and I can't tell you who that horse belongs to. I decided not to film the plaque for that statue. But the State Library was built with a glass roof. And in the late 1890s, or was it 1920s, the roof started leaking. It started leaking, and people would be sitting in the reading room, which is silent, and there'd be water dripping onto their scribbles, and it was covered up with a copper roof for decades. And suddenly, a decision was made, money was found, and that roof was opened up. It was all taken off, and you can see there the State Library of Victoria is temporarily closed. They've done all that work over the last 3 to 4 or 5 years, and nobody can go in and enjoy it. But uh, the reading room, we're just looking northwest there over the future State Library um, railway station as part of the Melbourne Metro Tunnel project. So I'll just chop myself off there. You can Google about the State Library and the roof and all that sort of stuff, and there will be pictures there. But as a separate project, I am actually filming to the best of my ability the works that are going on, and all that area has been raised and acquired by the state government. All the buildings that were on that corner were demolished, and underneath that crane, I think there's two. Uh, Underneath those cranes is the works for the new State Library station, which will be the Metro Rail Loop. So the Metro Rail Loop will run from in front of the camera there, straight down Swanston Street, underneath Swanston Street. It'll run east to west, no, north to south through the city, and go out one end at Domain near the Shrine of Remembrance. It'll come out the other end. It'll go through Parkville, and we're going to actually walk past the Parkville station in this video, and it'll come out at Kensington. It'll reappear on the surface, and I made an effort to stop there briefly. You can see now. Here's this is
Welcome to
Albert
this
Park
walking
Golf
life. This
Course.
morning
I'm
we're in
standing
Melbourne,
on
Australia, and today
a
we're
mound that was
walking from
built
the centre of Melbourne,
especially for the Melbourne
starting
Grand
at
Prix.
Victoria University's Flinders
That
Lane
video
campus,
was not
and we're
filmed for
walking to
this
RMIT
particular
University,
video. It's actually from my
and then we're
Albert
going to the
Park
Nova Cinema in
walk
Carlton,
video,
and from
and I've
Nova
also done a
Cinema
separate
to
one
Melbourne University,
walking around
and
the
then
road
on
in the
to
morning.
finishing at the Queen
I
Victoria
haven't finished
Market.
editing that yet. I'm just trying to trick it up
Let's go.
so that I can speed up the vision
Some
in
of the
the edit
institutions that I'll be
and make
featuring
out
on
that it's
this
actually
walking
a
life
Grand Prix
Victoria University, Melbourne
car going
University,
around.
RMIT
Anyway,
University,
and we're going to
Fox
look
Hill
down
State,
the
and
Trobe
Monash
Street there
University.
to the
And of
west.
course,
If you
I
travel
can
on the
cater for
tram
any
all the
special
way down the
request.
Trobe Street,
A
you'll
lot of
come
information
to
about safety in Melbourne, how to
Melbourne
live
West
in
Police
Melbourne, how to
Station.
find accommodation
It'll
in
take
Melbourne,
you
how to
over
travel
the
safely
bridge,
around
over the
Melbourne.
railway lines to Etihad Stadium and Harbour Esplanade and the Docklands. Now, again, I just want to show that there's many different ways to get around Melbourne. So we're going through one of my favourite entrances to the RMIT City campus. Normally in this building for the past, well, for many years, in building 16 there has been a student help centre. There is no public access in Swanston Street there at the moment because they've been renovating that room, God knows why. And building 24 has been an enrolment help centre at the start of each semester, but for some reason they decided to spend a bit of money on this courtyard. I don't know why, because no one ever uses it, even before COVID. But they've tricked it up with some seats, which no one's allowed to sit on because of COVID. They've put in some transparent some transparent furniture where you can't get any shade, so you're going to get sunburnt if you decide to sit there. I just decided to point the camera up because I wanted to get a bit of sky and the vines on the roof. And one of my favourite shot techniques is to twist the camera around, looking at the sky. And I'm just going to check the microphone. So we're 45 minutes in, and it's 7:15 here in the evening at the moment. Um, uh, so RMIT started off as a trades school specifically, and when I was coming out of high school, it was still mainly trades, but it was offering accounting courses, as I recall, and it's evolved into a specialist um, media school, journalism, creative writing, communications degrees. Architecture has been its backbone for decades. So um, when they remodeled the Swanston Street frontage and built a huge tower on the opposite side of Swanston Street, which isn't in this video. It'll be another video in the future. I haven't filmed it yet. But you can imagine all the RMIT alumni, the architects lining up to put their hand up to say, I want to do that job. I want to show off what I learnt at RMIT, the latest techniques. Now, they tricked up this area too. This area of Bourke Street has been redeveloped and done up in a big way over the last few years. Um, it, RMIT was just a set of very bland buildings for decades, very bland, concrete, very brutal architecture. And yes, that door is not going to open.
Not open?
COVID. I was going to walk up and through, so I'm sorry this vision is so boring, because I couldn't go through. I was actually going to go up to the first level to one of the cafe balconies on the first and second floor because it is good to look at. But no, all the buildings are closed, and in about 20 minutes, in a future 20 minutes in this video, we are going to actually find a building closed. And I stuffed up the camera with the battery. It was the first time I got caught where the camera stopped filming, and I had about 15 minutes of footage that never recorded, including a great conversation with an RMIT staffer who explained that the building was closed and I had to turn around and go back. I couldn't walk through, but them's the breaks. So I decided not to walk down to that door, but that's where I was going to walk inside, just to give a sense of what a great job they've done with opening up the buildings to the street frontage on the Swanston Street side. This is the internal road, Bourke Street. This used to be a city thoroughfare, but it's basically RMIT property now. And you can see that they've tricked it up, tried to make it a bit more visually interesting. It's a very old building in front of us right now. It houses the creative industries, the media students, the film students. I've done a few auditions in that building, student films. I forget what other type of students are in there. But they've also got information management courses, so a lot of library. They've got a very renowned library postgraduate and undergraduate course here. A lot of data scientist type courses. A full mix. The camera just swung around quickly, but just to the right of the camera in that building is the student radio studio. A lot of students like to get involved with that. It was graduation day somewhere at RMIT that day, so there's some a couple of people that were attending that. Normally RMIT, the past couple of years, they've hired out Etihad Stadium and had a huge, massive graduation ceremony with thousands of students. They get it all done in a couple of days or 2 or 3 days. But the other reason they have it at Etihad Stadium is because the Asian students whether they're living in Australia, living in Melbourne, studying in Melbourne, or here as international students, the whole family, um, the whole family comes to Melbourne for the graduation. It's a huge deal because the Asian culture is. I wouldn't have to. I wouldn't have to tell you. It's huge on study, um, and they really revel in their success and their achievements. It's giving you a sense of like how empty is this campus? All right, it's the first week in November, and no students were on campus during the whole year at any campus in Australia. It was all by remote learning, much like everywhere else, and there's no one there. Normally, this would be even after classes are finished, after exams, there'd be some sign of life. All the staff would be working from home. There'd still be activity going on, but well, we can see I'm ready. Well, I'm going to pause here to have dinner, and we'll return shortly. I've changed over. I'll see you after dinner. Thanks for joining me. Today is Sunday, the 7th of March, and I last spoke to you on the 24th of February. So I had a few things to attend to, got a bit distracted. But here we are continuing on with this commentary. We've got about another. We've got about another card there. You can see those people appeared magically out of nowhere. Just over 2 hours to go on this video, and we're finishing the RMIT portion of the video. I'll just quickly revisit the strategy, the idea behind commentary for this video. But this is the first video where I am commentating on the footage on the screen as you're watching it. Normally what I do is talk about how I go about creating these videos, different creative choices, functional, operational choices I've made, why I'm going where I'm going, to explain, you know, how what sort of thought processes and what sort of strategies go into creating these videos. But this one I want to, I've decided, because it's 3 hours long, this video, I figured, well, let's just do the basics where I just talk about where I am. So at the moment we're in Victoria Street, and the RMIT campus stretches quite over quite a significant area. The university has gobbled up quite a few surrounding buildings, and there's student accommodation. We're about to go around the corner of building 51. I did some subject in there 2 years ago for a master's that I won't be able to finish for various reasons that I won't go into here. Masters of Information Management. It was a great course. And so in Orr Street here, the reason I thought I'd go here once I got off the campus proper, and again, we're going from Vic Uni to RMIT via the Nova Cinema in Carlton to the Melbourne University Parkville campus. Around the other side into Royal Parade, we're going to swing past the Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre and go back to RMIT, and then to the Queen Vic Market, and finish off the Flagstaff Station. So here's the reason I decided to choose this particular route and street was not just to show a few backline streets, but that's a student accommodation there, Uni Lodge, and that's those international student accommodation places are becoming more and more prevalent, especially around RMIT. There's demand for that type of housing, or there's a supply of it, and they're creating the demand. This laneway I'd just like to walk down for no other reason than I could. Just to show you, Melbourne is very famous for its laneways, and these laneways are typical of the inner suburbs of Melbourne, because as Melbourne was expanding and growing, and you've got to remember that buildings and residences needed rear laneway access. Now I'm going to no, I won't interrupt myself. There's going to be a quick edit. We're going to go backwards for some reason. I'll tell you in a second. But the laneways presented, functional um, functional access for milkmen and garbage disposal that weren't possible via the front door. So a lot of these laneways and these bluestone um, uh, paved laneways, um, some of them are disappearing actually because they're getting ripped up in new developments and not replaced. But you know, please, to developers, if you're listening, please leave them alone. It's part of our city's history. Now, the reason the camera magically went backwards is because this was the first and hopefully only video where my camera's battery ran out, and I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it go off. So far, I've been quite lucky that when it does go off, I normally hear it, or I haven't walked too far. But this one, on this occasion, I actually walked an extra distance all the way down to about to turn left. If you see the doorway there, the RMIT logo, I walked all the way in there and had a great conversation with the people inside who wouldn't let me go any further, and I captured all that. But I came back out and saw that the camera battery had died, so I had to go back down. I decided to go retrace my steps down to the laneway, and good thing that doesn't happen too often. But I decided not to walk too much around the true RMIT campus. I just decided to take the route that you've already seen and come out Bourke Street and go up Victoria Street. But come over here, and this is a good example of RMIT. It's a very extensive campus, and it's a shame that because of COVID, that building was student-only access. My plan was to walk through that building to Cardigan Street, Grattan Street, I can't remember, Grattan Street maybe, but I couldn't do it, so I had to retrace my steps, and this is the second time I had to do that, and this is where I got up to when I found out the camera, the camera battery had died. But just to also give you a sense of, the skyline, trying to give you a sense of place, the sort of views. The octagonal building directly on the left centre of frame is the old Ansett Australia building. Those guys where they're walking that building, they're walking outside of is a student lounge type facility. This building. RMIT are very tight with their security. You can get into that building, but you need to have specific permission. So if your course doesn't allow you access to that building, you have to go to RMIT security and specifically ask them to add your ID card, and they'll tee it up that you can have access. Now, you'll have seen this footage before. This little clip has already played at the start of this video around the Vic Uni campus. I made a decision that I'd put this clip in at each campus visited, and after I depart the campus, I'd put this in, because what I've noticed is that a lot of my videos, people are skipping through them because I'm using a handheld digital camera, Olympus brand, and like you can see for yourself, the footage is not top shelf. There's nothing wrong with it, in my opinion, but what I've noticed is that I'm paying a heavy price in terms of viewers, and I don't get many returning viewers at the moment. People tend to skip through my videos, so but sometimes if they skip through, they do watch a significant portion of a particular part of the video if they saw land or something they like.
and I'll be
So
delivering
taking that
that
into
on a
account, it
regular
made
basis
sense to
to this
me to
channel.
put
I've
another
seen many
a
international
repeat of the
students
same information
enjoy
in there,
studying
that
and
if they
living in
didn't,
Melbourne,
if they
and I have
skipped
no
over it
doubt
and
that
didn't
your
see it,
children will as well.
in the
Some of the
in,
institutions that I'll be featuring on this Walking Life,
earlier on, then maybe I'll
Victoria
catch them with
University,
this and I'll
Melbourne
watch this.
University, RMIT University,
So just trying to add
Box Hill Tate, and
something,
Monash
make the video a
University.
bit more
And
dynamic.
of course, I can cater for
It's
any
like
special request.
an
I
extended
also have a
commercial
deep and
break
broad
in the
knowledge
middle
of
of
the
a
international
TV
tertiary
show.
sector in Melbourne and Australia.
That was the thinking
I
behind
know
it.
many of the main players. I know how to network with them.
And it breaks it up. And then on the other hand, if somebody's
Australia has proven
somebody's
itself
watching
to
this
be one
video
of
and they
the
don't
best
mind
equipped to
shaky
deal
camera
with the
and they're
challenges
with me for
presented
the
by the
journey
coronavirus epidemic.
of this particular video, they can skip
And in
through
this
this if they don't want to watch
coronavirus
it.
environment that the world is currently going
Now,
through
it's
and dealing
not
with,
been my intention to
you can be
appear
sure that Australia,
on camera so
and
much
particularly Melbourne and Sydney,
on this channel.
Australia is one of the safest
I've
places
learnt that
you can be living.
basically people don't want to see on this channel.
Today
they don't want to see someone talking to camera.
November,
So
2020.
When I started this channel,
It was only 4
there was a
months ago
good 30 to 40 seconds of
Melbourne
me introducing the
recorded
video, because I'm pretty old school.
725
Like I
active
wouldn't call
cases of
myself
coronavirus.
rejuvenating.
The same day, 760 were recorded
I've never
as
really
active
been
cases
one
in
to
Britain.
want to be a content creator on YouTube. That was never a
You don't
goal
have
of
to do too
mine.
much research or
And
be living under a
let's
rock
face it, I'm in
to
my
know
mid
what happened
50s.
next.
I'm pretty set
Melbourne
in my
has
ways to
successfully stamped out
tell
the
stories
virus.
visually,
As of
but
today, we've had 6
and I am
days in a row
verbose by
with
nature
no active
in
cases
word and in
no
writing.
deaths. What better
So
place to send
I've
your
shrunk
child
those
in
intros down to a
2021
simple
or
10
any time
seconds,
in the
and then
future
I
to
just have
study,
a
knowing
voiceover.
that they'll be safe,
Now,
protected by
so
Australia's
this is the
pragmatic
walking value
health and political leadership.
part of the video. So from here, it's a fairly long walk
Thanks for
from
watching
the
this video.
edge of the CBD, the northern border
The
of
journey of
RMIT
1,000
University.
steps
And there's
starts with a
still,
walk.
in this street, there's quite
If
a
you
few
and your child are considering
buildings that are
studying in
used by
Australia, I
RMIT
hope
for
you'll
various
share that journey and
purposes.
that walk with this Walking Life.
And if you were to go
So
to the RMIT
subscribe,
website,
and I'll see you in the
you'd
next
see
video.
the campus map. It's quite extensive. But I used to live in the inner suburbs of Melbourne in the late 90s. I lived in Carlton on the edge of the gardens where the exhibition buildings and the Melbourne Museum is, and I used to walk to work and home again every day. I never used to catch the tram because I used to enjoy walking to work and walking home from work. So I figured, well, I know these streets so incredibly well, and they're changing so much. That's the other reason, is that by doing this walk, I'm not just informing you as a potential overseas student coming to Australia. I'm also documenting, the changing face of Melbourne. It's just the pace of change is mind-boggling, and to see the changes that have gone on in, this was my stamping ground for those 3 years. These areas, all these pubs are changing. Development, RMIT and Melbourne University are spending huge dollars on upgrading and campus buildings and building new buildings and expanding, swallowing up real estate around the campuses. And the pace of change in Melbourne, not just the inner city, but the outer suburbs as well. There's cranes everywhere, and it's just so hard to get used to be honest, as a long time resident of Melbourne, born and bred here. But anyway, this is a typical inner city hotel, the Lygon. Back in the day, would have been a typical student pub, but to survive, those pubs had to, in the 80s, they found they had to start raising the bar and upping the standard of the service and the food and the entertainment and all this sort of thing. With pokies, and we're still in Cardigan Street here, and you're probably, hopefully, getting the idea that it really doesn't take that long, and you've got to remember that it would never take 3 hours to walk. Or how long did it take me? It took me just over 2 hours to walk from the RMIT campus, which is pretty much, you know, not quite the centre of the city, but the northern edges of it. And but you can walk from um, the State Library in Trobe Street. You can walk to Carlton in a good half hour at a comfortable clip without going too fast. So don't get the trouble with this video is it gives you the idea that it takes a very long time to get anywhere. And don't forget we're walking, and then don't forget that you can catch a tram or a bus to these destinations, and it's even quicker and not expensive at all. So I'm just noticing that the possibly the frame is bobbing around a bit, and I acknowledge that. I don't apologise for it, but I know in my gut, I don't want to say it out loud, but I suppose that its camera technique is costing me views. It's costing me watch time. But I'm not worried. Like, it's not ideal. Like, I would like more subscribers. As of today, I've got 14 subscribers in 4 months. I've got 30 hours of watch time in 4 months. The simple fact is that people are watching this content. Now, if I had no subscribers and an hour of watch time after 4 months, well, I'd have to be seriously saying to myself, either I upgrade the camera right now, or just stop altogether. But I think this content is worthwhile pursuing. So we're here at the gardens. You saw the little title card come up for these gardens. This area here. Oh no, it wasn't these gardens, but skateboarders like these sort of concrete areas, and not this garden, but the ones on Swanston Street, which is to the left of Frame and another block away. Melbourne City Council actually went to the trouble of redeveloping the concrete area, because the skateboarders and the roller skaters and the bladers were just making it too uncomfortable and dangerous for the pedestrians and people using it for what it was meant to be. It wasn't a skate park, is what I'm trying to say. So this is just another view of Melbourne, just trying to give some context of the area, the environment. So this is Argyle Square, as you can see, the title's just come up. Just trying to give you a sense. It's a pretty nice sunny day, and what I'm trying to do is just weave my way in an indirect way through these streets. There's more direct ways that I could have chosen to go, but my strategy for this particular video was to give a really broad context about lifestyle in Melbourne, inner lifestyle. And then there's some showcase. Here's a good example of Melbourne City Council responding to COVID. So naturally, Fashion Week was shut down, didn't run, so they had the idea that cabinet never sits there as a rule. And there's the camera wobbling again, which is fine. But the council decided to put up this cabinet just to give some sort of visual representation of what we're missing out on, and the designers give them some sort of public display. I don't know that that's the best place to put a display of Melbourne fashion. This stretch of road is not known for its embrace of Melbourne fashion. I don't know why they put it there, but anyway, at least they had a go. And this is Lygon Street. So in front of the camera, up that way, is Nova Cinema, Carlton, Eating Precinct, and straight down that road, this is a bus route. Straight down that road, it takes you straight into the city. So there's a number of buses that go through here, just normal metropolitan buses from the eastern suburbs, Doncaster, Box Hill, Kew, but no smart buses if you're looking for those. Now, on that building that we just panned from, to the left, that one there, hold the camera there, Sean. The these two corner buildings are a great example of how COVID has decimated small business and small to medium sized businesses in Melbourne. It's just one empty space after another, and the commercial real estate sector is going to take a long time to recover as well in the city and surrounding suburbs of Melbourne. Normally, I would never go up this street. There's no reason to, but again, I walked up this street for the purposes of this video, just to give a sense of, this is what the area looks like. Melbourne was designed back in the day with very, very wide streets, as almost sort of a lesson learned by the sprawl and the confusing nature of Sydney, the way it grew out of walking trails, and there was no real design to Sydney, the streetscapes and the suburbs as it made its way around the harbour in the early days. But the bloke who was in charge of designing Melbourne set it up as a grid and a rectangle, and the surrounding areas like Carlton and North Melbourne and Richmond and South Yarra, reflected that as well. They wanted order, and they wanted everything to be straightforward and well laid out. So here we are in Carlton, and we've been in Carlton since we left RMIT. Once we crossed Victoria Street. And now we're heading more towards the territory that was my backyard when I was living here in the late 90s for 3 years in a two-story terrace house, share house, and you can see why I loved walking to work. I was looking at that view every morning, but back then there wasn't as many skyscrapers. But no less. I mean, the view hasn't been enhanced. I wouldn't say it's been enhanced or destroyed. It's just there's just more towers in the skyline now. I definitely made a conscious choice to walk down Drummond Street here because you get a really good feel for the residential area of this street, how wide it is. Thank goodness the universities haven't swallowed up these houses, and I'm even more grateful that the developers have not done away, swallowed up these properties and done away with the old and brought in horrible new type of small space living areas that we're now beginning to see so much around the city and the suburbs. I deliberately chose to walk up the median strip because, and I'm not going at a great pace, so I'm a little surprised that the camera is bobbing around so much. But on the other hand, we're an hour and a quarter into this video. I wasn't feeling too tired by this stage. It wasn't too hot. It was just a nice warm day. We've had a very mild summer here actually, and this was filmed in early November. It's taken me a while to edit this. I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of titles and markers for the what roads are we in, what suburbs are we in. If there was anything incredibly worthy of interest, that was also noted. But it's a really great example of this is a pretty affluent area, even for renting. So you wouldn't find student accommodation in this street. And just between us, I've always wondered who does live in this street. Like, what sort of person would live here? Would they be a white-collar professional? Would they be a health professional? Would they be a business owner, like a really big business owner, because I can tell you the rates for the amenities for this area, they must be huge. They're probably bigger than my bigger than my 5-year food bill probably. But what else can I tell you about this area? But this, again, it's a short walk. We've got the Swanston Street trams to the left, and the buses on Lygon Street to the left. And now we're getting up to my old immediate neighbourhood. So this is Grattan Street in front of us. When I was living here, there never used to be traffic lights here. I don't think there does need to be traffic lights here, to be honest. Now you can see those people wearing masks. So this was filmed in November. So this is about the first week after Melbourne's 100 days plus lockdown. It was our second or third lockdown last year, and we were held to within 5 kilometres of our homes. You're only allowed outside for 4 specific reasons. So you can see people are still wearing a mask. I'm wearing a mask while filming this video, and I'm still wearing a mask in February 2021. I've decided to do that, even though it's not mandatory except on public transport. Now, the reason I picked out Jimmy Brings is because he's been following me all around town. See you, Jimmy. I became aware of Jimmy. I saw that van in a completely different part of Melbourne, and I followed him trying to speak to the driver about another topic I was researching, but he got away from... Oh, no, did I get him? Oh, yeah, I did catch up to him. I gave him my card, but I decided not to follow through with that particular project, which is why I concentrated on that van. Home delivery of alcohol. Wind alcohol. Now, behind the camera is the old Lemon Tree pub, and it's now a childcare centre. But back in the late 90s, it was a kick-ass pub for Sunday afternoon beer and a Sunday night open mic night, which I attended as often as I could. That was what I was doing back then. And now we're heading across Rathdown Street in Carlton. Normally this street, so I forget which day of the week I filmed this, but this is like a Thursday. I think this is a Thursday actually. Normally at this time of day, this street would be humming with cars, backwards and forwards, people everywhere. But COVID, hardly anyone around, hardly any traffic. Carlton Gardens there. Behind those gardens, to the right of the screen, is the Melbourne Museum and the exhibition buildings. And I've noticed that I've had to be fairly selective of where I swing the camera around. Like I've realised there's only so much I can capture with the camera. Just because I'm near something of note doesn't mean that I should be swinging the camera around and trying to capture it and also actually go there. So the Melbourne Museum and the exhibition buildings don't appear in this video, but they are directly behind the camera. Now, the reason I've come down Bourke Street and made a little detour is because this is the street that I used to live in the late 90s for 3 years, and this is a good example of, and I can see the camera is bobbing around a bit. So, but that's just the nature of the equipment that I'm using. I've got to use something, and I'd rather record content and upload it than not do anything. And I'll comment on that later on about camera equipment briefly. But this street, there is student accommodation here, share houses. Back when I was renting, it was this particular 2-story place. It was $400 a month, which worked out to, there it is, 142 Bourke Street. It worked out to $100 a month for 4 of us, 4 rooms. It's, it's incredibly spacious inside. Don't let the exterior um, fool you. It goes. There's a great depth. Now the reason I didn't the reason I swung the camera and kept walking without stopping is because uh, if I was in the front room of the house and saw a bloke with a camera suddenly filming outside, well, I just didn't want to have that conversation. So there was no need for me to. If you want a better look at that house, we can go back and pause the video. But you know, you could get a car parking permit. But I used to walk, and you can see the city skyline. Except I don't think those towers were there when I was living here. But you get the sense of how close this is to the city and the universities. Now on the right, that behind those boards is the. Would you believe that there used to be a petrol station here on the corner? And if you believe that, good luck to you, and vote for him. But world's best shows tends. There was a petrol station there. Did great business, even though it was just two petrol pumps. And it was owned by an Italian family, and the young fella that used to work there was incredibly garrulous and gregarious and talkative, and he used to know everybody. They used to chat to everybody that came in, and they did great business because of him. They did mechanical repairs as well, and you can see that some developers acquired that site, and I'm sure that in the future that'll become something else. So crossing Rathdown Street again, and now we're heading. Basically, I'm retracing my steps from here. This is how I used to walk to the Nova Cinema, which is a famous art house cinema, and now the only art house cinema left standing in Melbourne. Melbourne used to have about 3 or 4 art house cinemas, and they all went out of business except for the Nova. And the funny thing about the Nova is that when I moved in '97 to Barclay Street, Carlton, the Nova was just, I'm pretty sure it was just 2 screens. And a very small operation, and now they've got nearly 20 screens of different sizes. Some of them are just basically like rooms with a TV. I mean, let's be honest, it's not really a cinema. If you can't, if you're in a room with 10 seats, a big screen, like you might as well be in somebody's home anyway. But it's they've built it into a great business now, and it used to be on 1 floor, and now it's on 2 floors, and they've got a great reputation for all sorts of films. And in fact, the Nova, to give you an example, I am proud to say that I've been watching Korean films for years. I watch a lot of international films, and I saw Parasite at the Nova Cinema. Well before its Oscar nomination, I knew it was coming out, and it was packed. And funnily enough, I was sitting next to a Korean girl by accident, because I go to the movies by myself, and it was really interesting that I was laughing at the same spots she was. That the story and the humour crossed cultural boundaries so noticeably that we were both reacting, and sometimes we reacted to different things. And there was probably, I know for a fact, in Parasite, and I know this for a fact, this is a true story because it was told to me by a Korean bloke who owns a Korean grocery supermarket in Melbourne's East, in Blackburn South. And he told me that he sold out of the noodles that were featured in Parasite because suddenly every Korean in Melbourne wanted to eat the same noodles that were in Parasite, that the family featured in Parasite. So there you go, the power of film. So now we're back in Cardigan Street. You'd think after all these years I'd know the names of these streets. I still keep forgetting them. We're crossing Faraday Street. Now, one thing I did miss out on, and I deliberately didn't go there, if you go, the camera's just going to turn up to the west. There it is. Now, behind those street umbrellas, and I didn't edit out that camera bobble, but uh, behind those umbrellas to the left and a bit further up the street is the very famous La Mama Theatre, which unfortunately 18 months ago was burnt to the ground. La Mama is extremely famous in the Australian arts scene for being a breeding ground for um, up and coming playwrights, experimental theatre. Um, it's sort of like, if you want to coin a term, it's like our Melbourne's off Broadway for theatre. Very intimate theatre. Very tiny space, you can probably fit 50 to 60 people in there, but very powerful performances. Now, I couldn't believe it, but here's an example of more change. That my usual way of entering this shopping mall, which houses the Nova Cinema, is directly behind the boards, as the camera pans left right now. They've boarded it up. You can't get up the stairs anymore. Oh, I just couldn't believe it. The space, the change going on is just so rapid and so unending. Anyway, so now we're going into. This used to be the old driveway entrance to the car park underneath. And look, it's these businesses never used to be here in the 90s. It was just simply the pathway to the car park. That's why I've turned the camera around. It's literally just soaking it all in. Like so, I'm seeing a lot of this for the first time as well, not just as you, the viewer. Now, I don't like filming people on purpose when they're not looking, so I decided to turn the camera around. It also becomes a different way to change up the what's going on on the screen for the viewer, hopefully. And then, wouldn't you know it, that bloke turned up. So I turned the camera around again so that he wasn't on camera, because I don't want to be having awkward looks or conversations with people where they say, "Oh, what do you?" I know we're living in the digital age. The age of YouTube, the age of social media, the age of content creators, but like I like to show a bit of respect to the people that are around me. I don't want to be filming people on purpose. I'm happy to have them in the frame, but I don't want to point the camera at them deliberately. So here we are at the Nova Cinema, and this is how much things have changed. That their box office is downstairs. So on a Monday they've got. So that quick edit was because there was a guy standing exactly in front of that poster, leaning against the counter. Oh, you just couldn't believe it. So I wanted to film the counter, and I actually had to stop filming. I didn't stop filming actually. I just had to, walk up and say, "Oh, excuse me, I'd just like to film the counter." And he thought I was telling him to push off, which I wasn't saying. I just wanted to let him know that he could stand there after I finished filming. It only took like 10 seconds, but he took off, and so there was no need. There was no need for me to go up the escalator here. At this stage, the government regulations were cinemas weren't allowed to open, so the cinema was still closed, and it stayed closed for cinemas. We couldn't see films for, I can't remember how many weeks it was, but it was quite a long time before the cinemas could open again. But this is the best cinema to go to if you want to see films just slightly outside the mainstream, or really small, odd films that have got great reviews at international film festivals, but they haven't got a mainstream, target audience behind them. But they still play. The obvious mainstream films. And Nova's sort of had to bend to commercial reality a bit more. So they got the Bond film, which still hasn't come out in February 2021. The Bond film is it's still packed away. We're still waiting for it. And I did go and see that Kevin Costner film, and it pushed the boundaries of credibility a bit. Now, down below is Brunetti's, the Italian Brunetti's, the Italian coffee rama. Now, in there used to be a what was this? A bookstore. Oh, come on, what was the name of the bookstore? The International Bookstore, which was everywhere around the world, which went out of business after the GFC. Anyway, so that bookstore was fantastic to wait for movies in and read very expensive periodical film magazines for free instead of buying them, which I'll confess to. And it was a shame that bookstore went out of fashion. But the business model for that store, oh, if only I could remember it. Isn't that hopeless? I think I'm getting dementia. Or early onset dementia. Anyway, so but their business model was just all wrong. Like it didn't cater to the book lover. It catered to the book market, and it traded on volume, and it was just too much floor space. Now over here is Readings, and they've been here forever. And this particular Readings bookstore was here in the 90s. And looking up that way to the south, go down Lygon Street, take you straight to the city. The buses, of course, go up and down Lygon Street. And I used to use, and we'll pass it soon, I used to use Readings as, well, I'll wait till we pass it, but at this particular point, I've been walking non-stop with filming this video, and it's at this point where I went, and we'll see the edit, stop, edit, cut, it's here somewhere. Cut. I think I waited. Yeah, the guy disappeared. So what I did, I switched off the camera and went to have lunch, because up till that stage I'd been walking for 90 minutes non-stop, which is no big deal. Now the reason I filmed this window is because to the left on those upper two panes used to be, before the internet and before Craigslist, used to be, students used to go into Readings and handwrite on post-it notes or pieces of paper ads for their share house, and I used that window myself to get people into the share house, and it was really easy, and like you could put it up for free. Now, are you watching this video? Are you of a certain age where you've never heard of that before, or you didn't know that people did that back in the day, or you didn't realise that the internet was so all-consuming that yeah, there were a lot of things done, a lot of ads, and a lot of ways to advertise and promote things. When we didn't have an internet, which the truth is, the internet for me didn't exist till 92 was the first time I heard of it, and was exposed to it, and it was 97 when I was backpacking around Europe before I even heard of Hotmail, and was introduced to it by another backpacker. So isn't it incredible, the pace? It's barely 20 years that the internet has come to be so all-consuming, and social media, not even around. When was Facebook and YouTube? The late 2000s, like between 2005 and 2010. So it's a walk down memory lane, this route, in that regards. But I did choose these ways, and I used to walk through these streets all the time. Now, this is an example of more student accommodation. On the right is part of the same property. Technically, this is owned. This pathway is not open access. It is, although it's open access, it's owned by College Square, which is all international students. You won't see any local students living here. This has all sprung up in support of Australia's third biggest export market, which is the international student education sector. And again, I'll just mention, because you might be just joining this video, or you might have skipped through the previous bit, but I did work for 3 years at Victoria University International in Flinders Lane, which we've already seen where this video started. And I also had a stint at Monash, Department of Nursing and Health Sciences, for a little bit. And yeah, I was really keen to capture the student accommodation to show, an example of, if you're going to live in this area, you can choose, old style accommodations, share house accommodation. Yep, the camera is bobbling around a bit, but there's a reason for that, which I'll talk about briefly later on. You can search for online information for College Square and all the other places. But I just wanted to give a feel for, my intention for this content is that it's immersive and that it's innovative. And although my camera equipment doesn't allow me to give the most high quality, immersive, innovative viewer experience, by the very fact I'm going about it this way, I hope that for you as the viewer, that it does come across as innovative and immersive. Because just to go off topic briefly, is what I've noticed with a lot of walking video content is that it's just cameras being walked along city streets. Now, I could do that as well, but I want to do it with a specific reason in mind. So that's where I've come up with this strategy of filming around the Australian Open, filming around Melbourne's laneways, filming around Melbourne's street art, filming around Melbourne's international education sector and the universities and the residences, filming around the International Food and Wine Festival and the International Fashion Festival and the International Comedy Festival coming up in March, and the Melbourne International Film Festival coming up in it's normally August here. So I want to do it with a purpose, because I want the viewers to get a feel for, well, why does Melbourne have this international reputation for being the world's most livable city? Well, it's not just about walking around the streets. It's about, all right, well, at the moment, we're watching video content filmed during, COVID restrictions, the COVID environment. But normally this is Swanston Street. Normally this street would be absolutely filled to the brim with traffic of all sorts, cars, trams, buses, cyclists, people walking every which way in that. And it's not, because of COVID. But that doesn't stop me from presenting, what it's like to walk around these streets and what's going on and not going on, as the case may be. And I know for a fact that due to my work experience in international education at Victoria University, I know for a fact that Asian students and prospective Asian students, they don't want to see old historical buildings. They're not interested in heritage around Melbourne. They want to see contemporary facilities. They want to see bright, shiny new buildings, and they want to know that how up to date and modern everything is in Melbourne. And so by walking around these streets and showing the development, showing these cranes, there's a lot of development for Melbourne University to the left of camera behind the tram stop, and you see the building on the left. And now we cut into the basically. This is the we're getting towards the ad again. No, this is the intro to the campus. So behind that building to the left, that tower, is more very big development going on. So that's the Melbourne University tram terminus. and you jump on the tram there. So you can see that even though it's taken me an hour and 40 minutes to walk from the centre of the city to this particular spot, it does not take that long to walk or to travel to this particular space in Melbourne. You can get the tram, you can get a bus, you can ride a bike. You'll get here in next to no
Welcome to this
time.
walking
That's the
life.
view
This
looking
morning
back to
we're
the
in
city.
Melbourne, Australia.
Behind the
And
camera
today
is
we're walking from
Melbourne
the centre
General
of Melbourne,
Cemetery, and
starting at
if you go to
Victoria
the left,
University,
you go to
Flinders
the
Lane
Tullamarine
campus,
Freeway, Melbourne
and we're
Zoo.
walking to
If you go to the
RMIT
right, you can
University.
head down
And then we're going to
the
the
Eastern
Nova Cinema in
Freeway.
Carlton,
That's the Sydney
and
Maya
from the Nova
Asia
Cinema
Centre,
to Melbourne University,
as you just saw,
and then on
the
to and
Centre for
finishing at
Asian
the Queen
Studies. So I
Victoria
thought that was
Market.
really important for our Asian viewers in Hong Kong,
Let's
in
go.
Korea, Japan,
Some of
Thailand,
the
the Philippines,
institutions that I'll be featuring on this
Vietnam,
walking life
Taiwan,
are Victoria
Sri Lanka. I
University,
know all
Melbourne
you
University,
viewers are
RMIT
watching
University,
content. I've seen you in my
Parkville
stats,
and Monash
and I know that
University.
you're
And of course,
hitting
I
those
can cater
keyword
for any
searches for
special
these
request.
universities. So
A lot of
so
information
don't
about safety in
look
Melbourne,
at this content and
how to
think
live
that
in
this is
Melbourne,
as
how
good
to
as
find
it'll ever get.
accommodation in Melbourne,
As
how to travel safely around
it is
Melbourne.
within my reach to upgrade my equipment to a Sony vlog camera, which will have far more it has the stabilization feature. This footage will improve. It'll go up to 60 FPS. The pixels quality will go up, and the stabilization will be elite. Um, so stick with the channel. If you're just seeing this channel for the first time here, I should have edited that out. Come on, bloke who walks. Um, it will improve. So please stick with the channel. Please subscribe. Please comment. Please show some encouragement that you see some value in this video series, this international student education series. If you're a recruiter based in any of those countries that you actively work to recruit students for these universities, I'm also creating these videos for you. If you work in international student recruitment in any Australian university, not just the ones that I'm highlighting here in this video, please get in touch with me. I would really welcome the opportunity to have a chat, to collaborate with you on how to improve these videos, or even just supply them on a content licensing basis. If you wanted one specific to your recruitment efforts, you're welcome to spread the URL around your social media if it helps integrate with your own university's efforts, because I know the universities here in Australia during COVID staff resources have been decimated because students aren't coming, they're not enrolling, you're not getting your fees, you're slashing your casual staff, you're really uh, searching for every possible cost-cutting measure that you can. So there's a lot of retrenchment been going on the last 8 to 9 months. So I would like to offer my services to try and help augment and integrate into what you're already doing, to try and stem the flow of marketing intelligence out the door, and help you survive, and help that recruitment activity keep going. So we've walked down partially. It wasn't my intention to just walk down all the way. I wanted to cut through all the different buildings and pathways, and again, just give a sense of how this campus is laid out, how nice it is to walk around these grounds. What a great learning environment it is. Now, that's a new building there in front of us, the Architecture Building and Planning Library. That's brand new. I can't remember what used to be there. To be honest, I know that Melbourne University isn't afraid to reinvent its learning spaces by demolishing old buildings. Um, a lot of university architecture, especially at RMIT, is very industrial and brutal in its design aspects. And Melbourne University a bit the same. And Monash, oh, don't start me on Monash, but yeah, Melbourne isn't afraid to Melbourne University isn't afraid to to demolish and redesign and reinvent its learning spaces and upgrade them. So if you're a student in Asia and you're in Hong Kong or Vietnam or Nepal, you're looking to study overseas and you want to study it at a place which has you know which is shiny and new. Well, you got to understand that this it's not just the look of the buildings; it's the environment, the functionality, the operations, the equipment, but most of all, the knowledge and the culture and the teaching intelligence that is delivered by these courses. So here we are at the Raymond Priestley Building, and I'll let you look up online what courses are delivered within these buildings. But I'm just trying to get a sense of campus life, what it's like. Like it's November, the day that this is being filmed. Normally there would be, well, we're into exam period. 5th of November, that's normally exam period for uni students, but um, this particular area of the campus is normally very busy with student activity, whether they're doing exams or not. But you can see that the campus is simply bereft of student life, and I'm speculating heavily, and I'm sure it's true that on this particular day, many of the staff at Melbourne University, if they haven't been had their casual contracts finished up suddenly, or they're been retrenched or retired, that they'd be working from home. Now, I deliberately wanted to walk through the old quadrangle area because Melbourne University sprung up as a mimic by design, architectural design, and by strategy, and because of the people who founded it, you can see that it's deliberately designed as similar to many of the old um, colleges and universities in England and Ireland and probably Europe, but mainly. And I did a deliberate semicircle there just to give you a full circle, just to give you an idea of the surrounds. So you can see the archways and the sandstone, deliberately imitating and mimicking those traditional university setups in Oxford and Cambridge and Leeds and Manchester, Liverpool, all those sort of places. Um, and I just wanted to give a sense of, well, this traditional architectural teaching heritage slash teaching heritage is very much valued and alive and well, and part of university life. Now, here's an example where I've deliberately turned the camera away from that bloke approaching because I don't want to film people deliberately or accidentally. Now, what I might do here is take a break, pause for lunch, and I'll see you soon. Okay, so we're back, fed and watered. Whoops, hang on a second. Okay, we're just waiting for the video to catch up to where I left off. So we've got about we've got a good hour, maybe maybe a bit more than a good hour to go. Um, so um, why did I film the old quadrangle? Well, I wanted to give a sense of the Melbourne University campus in Parkville is incredibly diverse in the way it presents itself. Um, Obviously, being the oldest established university in Melbourne, there's a fair bit of history there. But like I said before, you've got to if you're an Asian student overseas or a parent of an Asian student, you see all these old buildings. You've got to take into account that while we're very obviously a key part of international student education, marketing, and recruitment is you're going to see lots of uh, marketing material with photos, videos of this campus infrastructure. But you've got to look past that, and the key is obviously, what is how is the course delivered, you know, um, how does the university present itself? Now, the main universities in Melbourne, all around Australia, there's a group of universities in Australia called the G8. And they love these sort of titles, saying G8, the top universities in Australia. They love their world rankings. Well, yeah, it's a very common way of selling a service, isn't it? These sort of things. So you've got to look beyond that, and don't be put off by how these buildings look, how old they look, or um, it's a mistake that Victoria University was making for a while, and every university, when they're talking about study abroad, they do tend to, the Melbourne-based ones, we do tend to bang on about, Flinders Street Station and the 12 Apostles and the Brighton bathing boxes and Puffing Billy. But what I'm trying to show in, this video in particular, that there's a lifestyle. Um, there's a lifestyle that you're buying into, and actually just coming to mind is this aspect. So this Australia has a very underrated, some would say underwhelming, soccer slash football competition called the A-League, and it's nowhere near the likes of the Premier League in England. It doesn't attract attention from Asia, even though it's so close. The Socceroos, the Australian national football team, doesn't really have the greatest reputation for the best display of soccer in the world. But so, and the A-League has historically, for the 10 years of this particular iteration, it's really struggled to attract um, uh, really top shelf um, players from overseas, from England and from Europe, Germany, but during COVID, the A League has tapped into a vein of thinking, selling the last couple of years the lifestyle, but especially during COVID, selling the fact that players from Europe and South America can actually play here, that our leagues aren't shut down, and in fact, there's fans going to the league. So they sold the recruitment aspect of their playing for the football club in Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane, saying to these guys, well, yes, you do have to travel a long way. Yes, you have to bring your family. Yes, it's a foreign language if you don't speak English. Yes, 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 all these different things. Yes, oh, okay, our football league isn't the greatest in terms of skill or execution, but you know what? Um, uh, Around about July, August, September last year, A-League clubs, of which there's 10 and should be going up to 12 in the next couple of years, they've been bombarded with inquiries from agents representing these overseas players uh, because of that very fact, the lifestyle. Our COVID situation has been handled well enough that we've yet to reach 1,000 people passing away from this horrible pandemic, and we've had last year was very frenetic and very intense, with Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane experiencing lockdowns, and Western Australia operating like a separate country for most of 2020. But we've got through it, and professional sport was still played last year. In a vastly different form than it ever has. We managed to have our international cricket during the summer, and we managed to have the Australian Open, if you follow international sport. The Australian Formula One Grand Prix has been delayed, not cancelled, like it was last year. So although, you can't really equate international student education with international elite sport, and I'm just thinking of the Olympics as I say that, but in the respect that you can send your kid to a place uh, once our borders open up, you can send your kid to a place where the lifestyle and the health system, the political system The pandemic has helped Australia really show the world just what a high functioning, uh, highly professional response, and our political system has functioned unbelievably well, for the most part, at a national and state level. The cooperation between all the different parties and leaders. Um, I would have hated to have been a politician or a state leader or a premier God help me, the Prime Minister of Australia. But Australia has done a remarkable job, and the only country that I think has beaten us and done a better job has been New Zealand, of course, by virtue of the fact that they're smaller in certain terms of size and population, and far more secluded in terms of geography. So if you can take that example of overseas soccer players in the twilight years of their careers trying to flock and flood towards the A League so that they can play in a Western, first world, civilized country that has a stable political system, an incredibly well functioning health system, and a common sense approach to uh, um, dealing with COVID, vaccine generation, I will pause here to say the way that our vaccine rollout is being handled is a complete mystery to me. I really don't know what's going on with it. Our media is doing a shocking job of covering the news about that. So I can't really speak about that with any great certainty because our media isn't talking about it to the standard that they should be, and the government isn't being accountable to when it's all coming out. And it just seems to be flying under the radar at the moment. So, but you can bet that the way that the vaccines are rolled out in Melbourne will hopefully will be up to the same standard as what the English have done with their vaccine rollout, which has just been absolutely mind blowing how they've pulled themselves back from the brink of disaster with what they were dealing with. It's been an incredible turnaround. Um, but all that aside, here we are at the south side of Melbourne University campus, and uh, I wasn't planning on capturing this sign because I actually didn't know it was there. But that was good enough for me to give that sense of, well, now woman Jacka, I'm pretty sure that's the local Indigenous language. I don't think it's not German. I know that for sure. Now you can see to the north, right in front of us is those skyscrapers. That's the city CBD. Again, this gives you a good sense, I hope, I'm pretty sure, of how close this campus is to the centre of Melbourne. Normally, where those boardings are is iron gates. Now, the reason all those works are there is it's not the university. Um, uh, we can see to the top left of screen, it'll come around again when the camera turns around to the left, and they'll be in the full view, is the Doherty Institute is that building behind those signposts. The Doherty Institute being a philanthropic research organisation, but you'll see these structures here, these white structures, steel structures. Is actually the government is building a brand new underground station here, a train station, as part of 5 new underground stations for the Melbourne Metro Tunnel, which is going from north to south through the city, and designed to break down the congestion that's occurring on Melbourne's train infrastructure. It's been a long time coming. It was delayed, debated. Nobody really had the political will to do it until 4 years ago. The current government came to power and just basically said, no, we're doing it. And they've got on with the job. And I'm a big fan of public transport. I don't have a car. So all I can say is about bloody time that they did it, because the previous government really stonewalled, really hid behind a lot of excuses. Anyway, so here's a great example of that white steel structure straddles Grattan Street. So there is no traffic flowing through from left to right of screen. that will be literally where the new underground station is. It'll run down to the right of screen to Royal Parade. I'm trying to be a bit fancy with the cameras, composing that shot. That little bit of gardening, that pillar doesn't mean anything. I'm just trying to break up the composition of the shot and make it interesting to look at. Um, as we head further west to the west side of Melbourne University campus. So behind those, there's normally no wall there, and once the station is finished, that will be taken down, and it'll go back to being just a road carrying traffic again. But this video is also a great way of documenting the change that's going on in Melbourne. The camera's bobbing around a lot more than I realised when I was editing. Now, I'll just quickly say, please don't think that I don't care about the quality of my videos, that there is so much camera movement, because I care extremely deeply. I know that I care because I get so wound up while I'm filming, and especially when I'm editing and waiting for files to finish coming out the other end of the edit process. I know I care very deeply about this stuff. I want to put out the highest quality video I can for the viewer. And it's not because I don't care that this video is this quality. I'll quickly touch on the point that while we're heading around the back of the university campus and these buildings, this is the medical buildings. You can see genetics, medical, the biomedical lab, the medical history museum of Melbourne University. So while we're heading around this area, I just want to quickly say that I have been using this channel. I established it in October 2020. I think it's a great niche to be exploring and presenting. It's very low impact filming. It's very easy to do by yourself and easy to edit. But I'm hamstrung by the equipment that I use, which is a handheld digital Olympus camera. I forget the model number. It fits in the palm of my hand. I originally didn't buy it. I didn't buy it for video filming at all. I just didn't have a camera for years, and I saw this was on sale one day accidentally, and I bought it. It was quite cheap and cheerful. And then in 2016, I realised while I was researching another project which would have video content, I realised this camera did take decent footage after a couple of experiments. And so I deliberately use it. Now, this particular video style is the first time I've ever walked around with it. The other project that I did in 2016, I filmed 45 hours of footage over 6 weeks, but I wasn't walking around. It was always planted in one spot with talking to camera, or filming the action that was going on in front of me, and making a very concerted effort not to move the camera. Whereas by nature, walking video content, yep, you're going to be walking. I've decided not to invest in a gimbal or a stabilizer, any kind of extra equipment, because I don't want to waste the money, because I know, and the time has come for me to upgrade to a Sony Z Vlog camera. It's made specifically for vlogging. The price point at the moment is 1,090 Australian dollars, which I've got a budget for now. I have set up links in the description. You can make a contribution that if I can get there quicker by way of your donation, if you want to put some money into the ring, throw some money into the hat to help me finance the upgrade of this equipment. That's the only reason I've got a donation link through PayPal for this channel, is not to earn an income off your goodwill. It's actually to help me upgrade. So if you would like to see better quality videos, and I know people do, I know this content is hitting the mark. I know that people are interested in this content. I know the keywords for this content as we hit Royal Parade on the west side of Melbourne University, and that's also the Royal Melbourne Hospital. That's the Howard Florey Laboratory. Again, more medical courses in that building. I know that the keywords and the strategies that I'm executing for this content, I know it's working, and I know people are interested. I've got a very low rate of returning viewers, and that's the Peter McCallum Cancer Institute. Brand new, that building on the left, only finished in the last 3 to 5 years. They've only just taken the scaffolding away in the last 2 years, and that's Australia's premier cancer treatment facility. Now we're coming up here to the western end of the new Parkville station of underground train station for the Melbourne Metro Tunnel. But I'll just finish off by saying that I know people want to see these videos, and I know there's some of you, if you're listening right now and you've watched more than 2 minutes of video time or more than 5 minutes, I know you want to see this video content, but I know it's a bit of hard work. It seems like YouTube viewers are a lot more fussier than I thought they would be, and I'll just let this footage speak for itself. Like, it's not hard to work out what it is, so I'll just keep talking about the video qualities. I figured the reason I started this channel with the camera equipment I've got is because I thought, well, 70%, my understanding is 70% of all YouTube content people watch on an iPhone or an iPad. And they're going to be watching it on a train or a tram or standing at a bus stop or whatever. Or, you know, they're not sitting perfectly still in it like you are in a cinema with a black, you know, you've got black. You're in the dark. You're watching it with strangers. No, most people watch video content like this in transit or in a noisy environment. So I don't quite understand why people are so judgmental about video footage like this, because the screen is so small on an iPhone. Like, what does it matter? What does it matter if it's not 4K? Come on. And what does it matter if it's not perfectly still? I mean, really. I mean, is there really anything wrong with this footage? Like, I guess it's the argument between high definition footage for elite level sport. I suppose that's the argument that, you know, the latest ads I've seen for pay TV here is that you're seeing details that you've never seen before. Well, I mean, all right, let's talk about the detail in this shot. There's a building. Down below at the intersection, there's some people. There's a public transport infrastructure work vehicle waiting at the traffic lights. Now, what else do you need to see? What else do you need to see? And if you're watching this on an iPhone, like, what are you missing out on? Really? What you tell me in the comments. What is it that you're missing out on? Because I'm using a 30 FPS digital camera as opposed to a 4K Sony vlog camera. I mean, what are you not seeing? There's a truck crossing the road. I mean, come on. All right, so we're this is Grattan Street. Oh dear. This is Grattan Street. You can see normally this is a thoroughfare. Now, what I didn't mention was that due to these works, these train works, and it's caused a bit of angst amongst the locals. The camera will briefly look through that fence in a second. This street, they had to cut down a lot of old established trees. Unfortunately, a lot of arborists got out their chainsaws one day and said, "We've been sent here by the government." And all those trees have been cut down. Same thing has happened in St Kilda Road on the southern side of Melbourne CBD. A lot of trees went down screaming. Anyway, so that's the western view. Oh, here we go into an ad. Now, I might have put this ad in too early because this is only halfway through the Melbourne University campus experience, because as with RMIT University earlier in this particular video, the Melbourne University campus does stretch across a lot of acres, a lot of hectares. It's a broad, sprawling campus, which in the edit I decided to put another repeat of the same video footage and message here. because I thought, well, maybe people might not watch through all the way. They might not care less that there's more Melbourne Uni campuses. Now, this I filmed on a different, I think I filmed this in the morning of the day that I recorded all this footage. And it was like, I don't use a script. I want everything to be organic and feel natural. I don't want to try and memorise stuff too much. That's in Box Hill, but I thought to put a title in. That tram going past. But I want everything to be as natural as can be. I want to appear as if, I want to look like I'm having a phone conversation with someone that's just called me up. And I think it comes across as more authentic. So that's from a building looking east from the corner of Trobe Street and Spencer Street in the west side of Melbourne, near Docklands, on the edge of Docklands, looking back towards Flagstaff Gardens. And the Queen Victoria Market is amongst those buildings there. Now, I really wanted to make a point of this video is not just for potential students. It's also for the parents of those potential students. And the video is also for recruiters working for Australian universities as partners in recruitment for international students to come to Melbourne. So you can see that I've got very broad strategic plans for this video content, that I want it to have as much reach as possible. I want it to be as broad as possible, but also targeted. So while I want this video to speak about services and education on offer here in Australia, and the lifestyle that you can enjoy while you're in Melbourne or studying in Melbourne. So then there's a subset of appealing factors within this video, appealing to 3 different target audiences. So if you're confused or being confused why these talking video excerpts inserted at this point and 4 other times throughout this video, that's why. All right, so here we are. We're back at Grattan Street. We're looking west at Peter McCallum Cancer Foundation, the institute. Behind those boards is Grattan Street. Normally traffic is running west to east, east to west. It's a very busy street. What's going on? Plain to see. I've already explained. To the left in that building is the Doherty Institute. You can Google that and find out what they do. But clearly it's related to the health field. They're a philanthropic organisation to do with the medical field, probably related to cancer. But I'm not a health professional, and I didn't need to know what the Doherty Institute did before I started this commentary. I'll just let you do that. Normally, obviously, this road is full of cars coming off the roundabout here. But again, the reason I'm making the effort to walk such a huge distance is I'm just trying to paint, tell a story visually of how you get around Melbourne, how everything is interconnected. If you're an international student, you got so many options for accommodation, study. If you don't choose Melbourne or RMIT or Vic Uni International, you can study at Swinburne, which is about a 15-minute train ride east of the centre of Melbourne, and and all the same options there, the same lifestyle options, the same transport options, the same lifestyle options. Now, as we come up here, I'm using myself there. I was feeling a bit self-conscious that I was walking behind this woman. As I've said before, I don't like filming people without their knowledge, but she was in front of me, and a nice little, she looked at me. I don't think she knew I was there specifically, but she had a nice little COVID kick, and that's an interesting composition in the frame of the camera there, isn't it? And I didn't actually know that roundabout had a proper name until I googled it to see if it had a name that I could put it there. The Haymarket roundabout. There you go. Now for it's only in the last 10 to 15 years that traffic lights have been at this roundabout. And when I started driving, when I first got my driver's license, this roundabout used to be so much fun to drive through. And just the challenge, because it's got about 6 different entry points, and they're all main roads, plus the trams. It was so much fun. I used to in the mid '80s, I used to come in to the city on a Sunday night for reasons which I don't need to go into here. It wasn't nefarious, it wasn't criminal. It was actually a community group type setup. Then we used to go for pizza in Lygon Street afterwards. But I used to come up the freeway, the Eastern Freeway, and through Carlton, past the General Cemetery, past Melbourne University. I used to come out here I used to have to drive through this roundabout, and that was long before there was an old hospital building there, long before this development. And there was no traffic lights, and it was a real challenge. And on a Sunday night, back in the day when nobody used to live in the centre of Melbourne, that's how old I am. That I have seen, you know, I've seen the development go from 0 to 100 in very short time. It used to be that nobody would even come to the city on a weekend. Melbourne was a funny place. I suppose, like most cities, you know, through the 20th century, the 19th century, that, you know, people would work in the city, but they wouldn't live there because that's where the slums were, or that's where the docklands were, or that's where the cottages were, or that's where the, you know, people, you know, spread out. They had big properties, and my family. My mum grew up in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, and that's where everyone had space. You wouldn't, even when I started working, my first job out of school was in a suburb of Richmond, and even in the 80s in Melbourne, like you wouldn't deliberately move out from the outer suburbs or the eastern suburbs. You'd want to go and see a psychiatrist to understand why would anyone want to live in Richmond in those tiny little houses in South Yarra or in Port Melbourne where the dock workers used to live as Melbourne was being established. But no, the Melbourne City Council in the 1980s began a concerted campaign called Postcode 3000, and the Victorian State Government sometime in the 90s, the early 90s, they decided that, like a lot of places around the world, in Leeds and Liverpool and you know, places in America that used to be really high traffic docklands with importing and exporting goods, at places that had died out, that had been transformed through residential or say like Canary Wharf in London. Well, Melbourne went through that realisation as well, as I'm trying to use the pole to disguise the fact that we're actually now filming ended, and now, after the camera passed behind the pole for the second time, we're filming on a different day. It's suddenly the next week, but isn't it great that the weather held out, that it's virtually the same? And unless you heard me telling you, you wouldn't know that it was a different day. But, you know, I had to do this on a different day because I used 3 batteries, and well, it was got to be up to now. It's over 2 hours of filming, and so I had to come back. So luckily the weather held up. But yeah, just to finish that story, that Melbourne, no different to many other places around the world, that used to have a high density of workforce around the docks. Once containers came to play, and you know, the goods and services, importing, exporting, started changing, Melbourne had to reinvent itself. So for some time while I was a kid into my 20s, the Yarra docklands and the bay was very down and out. And it's only really now, these last 5 years, I reckon, that it's starting to take shape as a residential professional services area, the docklands, that people, this living in the city mentality has really taken hold, where it's very mainstream. And obviously this video also shows, as we look to the left and we've passed it, that is a new student building embedded behind the facade of an old Melbourne pub. And that's another sad thing about development in Melbourne, is that a lot of our old heritage architecture is being sacrificed in a very supercilious and, some might say, fake way of retaining heritage. Is that developers are buying these sensational old pubs, which have been so much the lifeblood of, our culture, socialising culture, and they acquire the property and a bit of land around the property, and then they gut the building, keep the facade, and build these huge apartments behind it. And to my horror, in the paper last week, and it's not in this video, but Young and Jackson's Hotel, which is almost the first pub established in Melbourne in the 1850s, that it is also possibly going to be gutted, where they'll keep the facade and they'll just build this huge complex behind it. And it's so sad. It really is sad, because there's a lot of history in those walls, and it's really only now that, personally, I'm coming to terms with the fact that change is just so rapid. And not that I'm saying we should stop it, but why can't we keep these valuable old buildings? But I suppose every bloke gets to that point in life, and maybe I've reached that for me. So looking back, the camera's looking back at where we've come from, so you can see that we're just a short distance up the road by foot from the university campus. We crossed the road, we walked directly outside the Peter McCallum Cancer Foundation. There it is again. We've traversed around to the west side of the roundabout. The Atira student apartments, I'm going to be doing a video on them soon with the new camera. And now we're going into, I think this is Pelham Street. Now, I could have walked straight down Elizabeth Street to the Queen Victoria Market, but I decided to carry on and extend this idea of where does the extent of the Melbourne University campus run to? And it does extend further into the southern side of Grattan Street. Now this, you can see already, there's a University of Melbourne logo hanging off the top of that building, and the camera's now just going to slightly pan. I'll approach it on foot. This is one of the business and economics buildings. It's very new as well. I think it was opened around 2006 or 7. Those buildings down Bourke Street and this other street, there's quite a few buildings taken over by the university for administrative IT services, internal IT services, internal marketing, external recruitment, inbound recruitment, all those sorts of ancillary services that a university needs. But again, because of COVID, Melbourne University, just like everyone else, they've had to let go of a lot of people, and the university sector in Australia is, it's no exaggeration to say that it is literally on its knees, because the other financial impact on universities is their research. And I can tell you from first-hand experience, and I'm not talking out of school, but Monash University has a dedicated commercialisation set up with it. They try to link. They have staff resources whose only job is to directly commercialise the efforts and studies of researchers. So, say for example, Monash University developed a COVID vaccine. Well, they would have dedicated staff resources trying to find a commercial distribution of that vaccine and patent it and all that sort of stuff. So Melbourne University no different, but all of the universities in Melbourne and Australia, with with our borders closed, easily a year now, either coming up or just passing this month. Well, the borders are closed, so there's no international students coming in. So there's no fees coming in. So the bottom line is being heavily impacted. And that's a great shot that gives you an example of how close to the CBD we are. Whether you work now, you see, can you get out of the way? I'm not a fan of Uber Eats. I'm not a fan of Deliveroo. I will never use their services, and I'm sick to death of those bike riders nearly running me over, which is why I'm wearing a yellow vest. You can't see it, but I'm always wearing a yellow high-vis vest now because they just there's a lack of courtesy and common decency. All right, so I'll shut up now about that. But you can see whether you're a university student or a city worker or however you're transiting through this area. Now, just to the right of camera is the Melbourne Business School, which is a highly renowned international business school. And I just want to give a shout out to Marcella. Congratulations on completing your studies at Melbourne Business School. So that's University Square. They've had to trim some of the trees there. They haven't completely chopped them down. Luckily, they retained them, but normally there is more trees in the distance, but they were chopped down because they're on Grattan Street. And you can see, well, you would have seen also around the roundabout on the eastern edge of the roundabout was also a huge work site for the Metro Tunnel where they're storing all sorts of equipment and the like. I'm not too sure which of these buildings is pure student accommodation, but you can bet those ones in front more than likely are. And then from here, I decided to start heading south back towards the CBD because our next stop from here, that's the Melbourne Business School in those buildings. Those three oddly shaped roofs are the Melbourne Business School. Very incredibly modern facilities there because they get a lot of captains of industry, CEOs, really high flying corporate and those sort of guys and girls. So they demand the best. The Melbourne Law School graduates and postgraduates courses in there, of course. And we're going to head into Barry Street and going down here. So again, this is a weekday that I'm filming this, and normally, I want to say it again, we're in the first week out of COVID lockdown, 100+ days of lockdown in Melbourne, and you can see that people are hardly flocking back. I might just say at this point, on the day that this was filmed, employers were only allowed to have essential people in the office, or 25% was the maximum of your staff you could have in the office. They didn't want too many people on trains. They didn't want too many people in the city in offices. They didn't want too many people travelling in the same times too close together. So people, even if they had the option, I think most people were choosing to work from home. And that's my own viewpoint. That's not a fact. I'm just anecdotally saying that. This is Barry Street, and on the right, these buildings on the right are all Melbourne University ancillary services like IT, marketing, all that sort of palaver, building management, maintenance, facilities management, maintenance. Now, as of today, and today is the 7th of March 2021, I'm doing this commentary. The state government, the Victorian state government, has lifted that employee cap that now businesses can have up to 50%. I think it's 50%, but it might soon be going to 75. But so again, if you're a parent of an international student, if you're working in international student recruitment in Malaysia or the Philippines or Vietnam or Hong Kong or Nepal or anywhere around the world, and you've got customers or potential clients that are worried about Australia because it's so far away, and look, to be honest, it's only the last few weeks that uni students are heading back to campus very slowly. It's a trickle, but why would you go to a country to study like America or Canada or the UK? We've got these horrendous infection figures and COVID case rates, and not to mention the sad high numbers of deaths. Why wouldn't you come to Australia and be in a place where you know the health system is not overwhelmed? You know that the government has proven itself to be a really responsible manager of the pandemic, and there's only been, and it's sad to say only, but there's been less than 1,000 people die from COVID in the whole of Australia. It's the whole of Australia, and even less than 100, I'm pretty sure, as of today in New Zealand. Like, why wouldn't you travel all this way to be safe, so that you could get around? We've got our international sporting fixtures back up and running. We've got people going back to the theatre to watch musicals and live shows. Our music scene is gradually getting up and running. You can travel wherever you want, although just highlighting that, at any time, any state or any city can shut down for 5 days or 14 days if there's a spate of infections. But it's just common sense. Whereas, in Europe's nearly heading into a fourth wave. My understanding is, as of this morning, it might be France or Denmark or Sweden, I think. But why would you travel to a country just for the sake of face-to-face learning and put yourself at more risk? Which is the whole point of this video that I'm trying to drum into the commentary and all these videos that I'm making about international student education. All of these videos is why not choose Australia? I mean, if it's good enough for international soccer stars from the Premier League to come and live and work here, apply their trade, like, why not come and study here? Anyway, so this street, the title will come up in a second, I hope, because I can't remember the name. It hasn't come up yet. Oh, here it is, Bourke Street, of course. So this is the best example I can give of how close everything is to the city, because at the end of this street is literally the CB, the central business district boundary of Melbourne, the northern boundary of Melbourne. And when we hit the end of this street, the camera will turn to the right, and Queen Victoria Market will be in front of us. Now, again, the reason I stopped taking this view, just to give an example of, these towers, when I lived in Carlton in the 90s, the late 90s, those towers didn't exist. And it's just me just stopping to smell the roses, as they say, just to take in. Well, Melbourne, the skyline has changed a lot, while at the same time hasn't really changed. But it used to be, the Rialto and the Collins Street Towers pretty much dominated the city skyline. And I'm just watching the footage here. It is bobbing around a bit, but it's not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of trying, and I'm definitely trying not to walk fast while I'm going. But at the same time, I don't I don't want to get so self-conscious about the filming that it starts to look a bit staid or stagnant, or because like what really is there really anything essentially wrong with the camera technique? I don't think so. Um, and look, if push comes to shove, maybe when I upgrade to the Sony vlogging camera, which I'll welcome any contribution through PayPal. Uh, it might well, I might, to experiment, I might actually reshoot this whole video as an experiment and see how the viewer stats change. Anyway, so it is what it is, and I would rather be having a go. And the great thing is that I think another great positive about using a camera that's not got all the bells and whistles is that it allows me the chance to learn my trade and to learn the craft of getting these videos up and running, to test out my my theories, my strategies about this content, what I think works, because I'm not fanatic about following other people's techniques, about known techniques. I'm not fanatical about copying other walking video content channels. I think it's important to be yourself, and I think that I've proven to myself there's an audience for this content, and I think the early signs are, even though it's 4 months and the stats aren't great, but I've just yesterday achieved 30 hours watch time. Now that might sound not much, given that you've got to achieve 4,000 hours of watch time, but look, to be honest, if you had told me on the 1st of October that people would sit and watch 30 hours, not non-stop, but there'd be enough people, I've had nearly 1,400 views in 4 months. Now 1,400, that's not a lot of hits, let's be honest, but 30 hours from 1,400 hits, that's pretty mind-boggling, really. The entertainment value of these sort of videos, I think, is quite low. I mean, it's just a camera. A guy in his mid-50s in Melbourne is walking around the streets of Melbourne with a camera, and 30 hours of that footage has been watched. So that's pretty interesting, isn't it, really? Anyway, so back to the footage. We're standing on the corner of Elizabeth Street and Victoria Street, hopefully, because I'm not really paying attention, but looking back that way is north towards the roundabout, which we crossed, and now we're going to cross with the lights eventually to the south, and right in front of us is Elizabeth Street, and that is one tram stop outside the main Melbourne CBD. So you can see, hopefully by now, you really have a good understanding, if you've watched non-stop the last 2 hours and 37 minutes. All power to you. But if you've watched any length of this video for longer than 5 minutes, you'll start to get a feel for Melbourne is very compact. Yes, it's spread over a large area, but bloody hell, it's so easy to get around, and you can't say that about Sydney. Sydney is such a different animal to Melbourne, because the layout of Sydney is governed by its topography and the geography, and then the bay, how you get around the bay. Melbourne, if you know Melbourne really well, like me, there's many different ways to get around, many different streets. I wouldn't call them shortcuts. In fact, I would say avoid shortcuts, because more often than not, a shortcut is more time consuming. You've got to go with the flow, is the way to get around. Now, here we are We've reached our 4th destination in this video, and as we
Welcome
hit
to this walking
Queen
life. This
Victoria
morning we're
Market,
in
which
Melbourne,
obviously is
Australia,
not
and
a
today we're walking
university
from the centre of
campus,
Melbourne,
but it makes
starting
sense
at
because
Victoria
I'll
University's
tell you why it made
Flinders
sense
Lane
to include
campus,
this in this video
and
is
we're
because
walking to
you'll
RMIT
find that a
University,
lot of
and then we're going to the
Asian
Nova
students
Cinema
and
in
young
Carlton,
people are
and from the Nova
flocking
Cinema
on
to
a
Melbourne
daily
University,
basis
and
to do
then
their
on
shopping
to
at the
finishing
market.
at the Queen
And
Victoria
even
Market.
those who are not studying off the market.
Let's
So
go.
there you go. There's a bloke with his shopping trolley. There's a
Some
girl
of the
in front of us with a
institutions that I'll
shopping
be
trolley.
featuring on this
There's a
walking
girl with a
life
day pack.
are Victoria University, Melbourne University, RMIT
Now to the
University,
left,
Box Hill
and
Place,
one block
and Monash
away,
University.
is
And of course,
RMIT
I
University
can cater
campus,
for
the
any
western
special
side
request. A lot of
of the
information
campus.
about
So that's the
safety in
outside of
Melbourne,
Victoria Market.
how to live in Melbourne, how to find accommodation
Those
in Melbourne, how to
cafes
travel
are
safely
only
around
just
Melbourne.
recently opened. In terms of the day that this video was filmed, was the second week of November 2020, and it just made sense. It just made sense to just give some context that there's a huge tram interchange servicing the Queen Victoria Market. There's typical McDonald's. There's one of those food delivery drivers that I really don't like crossing paths with because they never give way. They're always on the footpath. Here's the outside of an eatery which has the social distancing signage. And just pausing briefly to look up that street. And then just coming back around the front of the shops, just all to give a context of what the area looks like, give you a sense of how busy it is. These tables, this is about lunchtime, normally would be completely full. Melbourne's getting to be as busy as Melbourne, where we're almost shoulder to shoulder across the footpath now, which never used to be the case in Melbourne. There was always plenty of room there was always plenty of room on the footpath for people to walk. So this is not the usual scene. This is a COVID scene. There's people sitting in here, and of course all the businesses, like everywhere else around the world, businesses encouraged to have more outdoor seating. This is still Elizabeth Street, and you'll see the camera may or may not tilt to the right. I don't think I do. Alright, so on the right, we've already walked past that from the other side of the street. Tried to capture the Queen Vic sign, not obscured. Pretty much obscured there. I'll try it here. That's better. So this is one of several entrances, and this is obviously the oldest remaining entrance. And so from here we just dive into it. Now, I didn't have a particular plan in mind. Queen Victoria Market isn't really a common destination for me. For no other reason, it's not really convenient to me to shop at. But you can see this particular section, all the fresh food goods, quite a few, all in masks. I was really conscious at this stage of especially not filming kids. If they're accidentally in front of my camera and they'll come to something later on to comment on in terms of kids. Now this bloke conveniently just waited for me. And he took off as soon as I got within range, and he just conveniently acted like a tour guide. So I don't know whether that's a plus or a minus for you as a viewer. And there he is. He's just washed out of the way. Now the only thing is, when I was choosing I did this portion of the video I did separately as a standalone Queen Victoria video. And I wish I had. I take all my thumbnails from this sort of footage. I just take the software that I use lets me take a snapshot and creates a JPEG file. I don't take deliberate photos of places. I don't stop filming to take photos because it's just too inconvenient and it's too self-conscious, and I just don't want to interrupt. It's too tricky to edit in the less files that I've got to stitch together, the better for me. So here we are in this huge undercover area for all the fruit and veg. It just goes on and on and on, from north to south and east to west. And, it's all pretty much the same. This particular store holder specialises in condiments, sauces, and the like. Normally, this area can be extremely, they're organic vegetables, can be extremely uh, loud and busy, with people shouting out prices and whatever. We're coming up here to, is it Pelham Street? The title will come up in a second. I can never remember the names. Therry Street. Good guess. Normally there's lots of shouting going on, the old style spruiking of fruit and veggies by the traders, but not so much that day. Queen Vic Market still, on this day of filming, still, very sluggish trade, really. And then the camera came out from behind that sign, and look what's in front of me. A 1950s Valiant. I'm pretty sure it's a Valiant. I could be wrong. I couldn't believe my luck. And then the guy gets out from the car. Where is he? Get that somewhere. He's in a cowboy hat. Oh no, there he is in the white t-shirt. And the annoying thing was, see, I had to reload the camera because the SD card on this Olympus lasts 15 minutes, and again, not great editing. And the annoying thing, there was someone in the car, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway. But I tried to catch as much of the car as I could, and it was a bit hard with two occupants, and I didn't want to stop and talk to them and ask permission. It's a walking video, not a talking video. Come on. Now, I love this aspect of Melbourne. You can see the dramatic clouds behind those buildings. And because we're getting into the middle of the day, you're getting the reflection off the buildings, rebounding back into the west. This is getting into the west side of the CBD area. All this area is Queen Vic Market still, so I forget what the name of this street is, but and now over this side of the Queen Vic Market, you're getting away from the produce, food, the meat, the condiments, all that sort of stuff. You're getting in towards the goods. I'm not. I was going to say the stuff that fell off the back of the truck, but that's not true. All the stuff that people who work their guts out to make a living, selling leather jackets and discounted sunglasses, discounted travel goods like bags and suitcases and trolleys, scarves, boots, hats, belts. Belts are big at Queen Victoria Market. Look at them there on the left. Stop swinging the camera around. So now we're looking north. So behind these buildings and those towers is Melbourne University, just to keep giving you some context of where we are. I don't know. I think that bloke wants to go in front of me. Now, here's my little friend in the pigtails, and she just parked in front of me. I didn't want to film her, but at the same time, I didn't want to stop, and I didn't want to. I was getting a bit tired at this stage, physically tired. Anyway, so a good trick is to often turn around and film the other way, and then we turn back around, and guess what? She's still there, behind that lady with the ponytail. And there she is. You can see a glimpse. So still a bit of fruit and veggies here. But there she is, the little ballerina in the pigtails, and I was so annoyed. I was so annoyed because I was oh, excuse me. I was ready for a coffee break by this stage. I think I wanted a Coke. And there she is. She's still in front of me. She's dawdling along, dawdling along. Look at all those eggs on the right. Oh no, tell me I haven't got the hiccups. Oh dear. Oh, I can't have the hiccup. Anyway, so hopefully, well, not hopefully, the idea was to walk through as much of the Queen Vic market as possible. To again, look, you can see if you're an international student from Asia, anywhere in Asia, we'll have a look. There are so many Asians at the Queen Victoria market in this video. It should make you feel comfortable that Australia really is an Asian friendly place to come, especially in Melbourne. Lots of Asian immigrants here. Again, looking back east towards the city, those same buildings, some of those buildings belong to RMIT, those towers. Some of them don't, some are on the edge of RMIT, but again, just trying to give a sense of how the Queen Vic market sits right on the edge of the Melbourne CBD, which brings to mind a little historical anecdote for those that are interested. That the site of the Queen Victoria Market is actually where the first site for Melbourne's first cemetery was built or created. And my history facts escape me at the moment because I can't remember what year the Queen Vic was established. But when they did establish it, they did have to move a certain amount of graves just up the road to the north to where it now sits on the northern edge of Melbourne University. And if you want to Google the news, you'll find that there's a very big debate going on in Melbourne at the moment. It's still not settled after years of debate whether to completely demolish all the buildings that currently sit on the site and excavate it for this huge car park underneath and then rebuild the Vic Market almost as you see it right now in this video. And but then build all these huge apartment towers around it and turn it into some sort of hotel upgraded tourist precinct, which just the thought of all that is just too much to bear for someone like myself who just, well, it's like I acknowledge change. I acknowledge change. Change is always going to happen, but at the rate and how rapid it all is, and just the unrelenting nature of it, is almost too much to bear. Now this girl just charges through. You're welcome. You're welcome. Have a good day. So up here you can see. Now normally this area is going to be just every space would normally be taken up with stall holders, flogging their goods, selling their wares. There would be loads of people here normally. Now I really like this shot. I really like it. You've got the old in the foreground, the new in the background. You've got the future represented by the cranes, and that's how Melbourne looks, and that's the contrast and the juxtaposition. I really love that shot, and I would use it as a thumbnail if I could. But unfortunately, as with most of my videos, my videos to date aren't really heavily populated with people, which is more a function of where we're at as a society with COVID at this point in time, as opposed to my reluctance or lack of enthusiasm for filming people. I mean, there's people here, you can see them, but it's obvious that due to COVID, they're all wandering around with masks. But you can see now, just in front of us, and we'll see it soon, but there's another tram line, which also to the north, which we're facing north now. To the north is Melbourne University and the roundabout, the Peter McCallum Cancer Foundation, which we've passed already in this video. So that's one set of trams behind the camera now, and we've come from this direction that we're facing, and there's trams down there on Swanston Street and Elizabeth Street. So you can get a sense, even as I'm talking, I'm cheating here. This isn't Queen Victoria Market. This is the building surrounding the Flagstaff. Not even the Flagstaff Gardens, but I'm cheating. I had that footage and I put it in because there was cranes and similar sort of windows. But there it is again. But I just wanted to use the footage, all right? That's all. Um, what was I going to say? That so I'm about to stop here as I'm filming on the day that I'm filming, not now, right now that I'm commentating, but the camera will swing back around to the east, 180 degrees, and then there'll be an edit, and that's when I stop for a Coke and and take a deep breath because I was getting a bit tired this particular day as well. But I was so glad the weather was so cooperative. It's almost identical weather to the first day I was filming the first part of this video, and I really like that scenery. I just those I'm in love with the contrast of colours, and I'm in love with the heritage value of what's in the foreground. And you'll see that bloke will change from the bloke with the blue cap. It's a girl with a blonde ponytail. How did he do that? That's magic. That's an edit, and I deliberately did that to see if you'd notice. Um, so the camera's moving again. We've had our Coke, and now looking back to the north, and on the medium strip is the 59 tram, and that goes north to Coburg and sort of in a southwest direction, ending up in Toorak. It goes through South Yarra. This girl is looking a bit lost. Can I help you? Do you know where you're going? No, she's all right. And so I was just trying to decide. I just spent some time here, just letting the camera wash over, and I did a proper edit there because there was a horrible bobble of the camera in that section. So a bit of roadworks. This stop usually reasonably heavy with traffic, pedestrian traffic and trams. Now this is a good video in that there's a tram approaching, but it's also a good video at this particular point. Oh, it's a 58 tram. Okay. As the camera crosses the road here, and coming into view on the tram stop, you'll see one of these. Oh, okay. So we're going to look north. That's right. Yeah, because the tram goes past. All right. Okay, we'll let the tram go past. All right. There he goes. So as the camera pans around to the right, there you go. So you'll see one of these, this bloke in the high vis orange vest with bucket and the cloth and the haversack. Now, at the height of the pandemic, crews of people, anywhere between 4 to 6 people in a crew would be walking aimlessly around the CBD, just rubbing surfaces. This is, back in the early days of the pandemic when there was no vaccine. There wasn't any talk of a vaccine for, it was the first 6 or 7 months of 2020, wasn't it? So the city of Melbourne had these poor guys and girls who probably lost their other casual jobs, wandering the city, wiping down every single surface touch point that they came past, and such a thankless job. And that's at the height of things. When it was you don't have to think too much or think too hard about the early days of the pandemic. Let's be honest, it was pretty bloody scary, wasn't it? Because we didn't know a lot about COVID. We didn't know a lot about how it was transmitted. We were still, if we did, we were still getting used to the fact that yes, you've got to stay a certain distance from people. You've got to in the early days, and this is not no word of a lie, that in the first couple of months of the pandemic, the information from our state government here was, and it was on all the broadcasts at the train stations. It was on the printed posters being suddenly appearing at the train stations that you didn't need to wear a mask because it wasn't proven or it wasn't necessary. Now, that just didn't make sense to me at the time. Not that I knew any better, but this was the sort of conflicting, confusing information that was coming out, wasn't it? So I want to give a shout out to those guys and girls that kept my city clean and kept it COVID safe. You know, that for all we knew, they were risking their lives by being out in the open and touching these surfaces, because none of us knew really or understood in the first 2 to 3 months how this thing was getting from person to person being transmitted. So thank you to all of you guys and girls, and they're still out there doing it as of today, and probably will be for some time. So I'm making a deliberate decision to walk down the middle of the tram tracks, because that's the kind of guy I am. I would have done that even without a camera, because that's just how I roll. But I just wanted to give a different view of the city. Now, if you go right at that roundabout, that takes you out to the Tullamarine Freeway, the Westgate Bridge, takes you to Footscray. Victoria University has its central course delivery out at Footscray. And then I realised that for what I wanted to do, I was on the wrong side of the road. Which is why I suddenly uh, made my way hastily back to the left of camera, and that's looking north again. And if you have been listening, you'll know that north is Melbourne University direction. Directly east of the camera right now is RMIT. Straight in front of us, if you go down that road, you get to Docklands, Footscray. You get one of the on-ramps. If you take the on-ramp to the right, that'll take you out the western side of the city, and eventually to Ballarat and Bendigo and Sunbury and Castlemaine and Kyneton and Woodend. All those fantastic country places you can also get to by train. If you turn left, that'll take you to the Monash Freeway, out to Monash University, the Dandenongs, Warragul, Sale, Traralgon, and eventually to the New South Wales border. But if you keep walking, as we're going to do, well, it's a bit boring, and there was not much I could do to liven up the footage, really. It's just a car park to the left, and in front of us is the Flagstaff Gardens. It's quite a busy intersection, this one. That's some of the storage sheds for the Queen Victoria Market stall holders. It was interesting. I was happy to see this this forklift just left like this. I tried to make something of it with the camera. Yeah, no. So you might just see, once the camera reverts to a southerly direction and we're crossing the road, you see the bike paths. Can you see the green? Now Melbourne is very bike friendly, and can I just say, for the bike riders, what is going on? Like these are brand new, these bike lanes, that they didn't exist even last year, and COVID has done this all around the world. It's sped up the pace of the absence of the motor car, with everyone working from home. The council, like many municipalities in big cities around the world, realised, well, bloody hell, this is our chance to reduce car traffic. This is our chance to encourage people to ride bicycles more. This is our chance to encourage less commuting by car, to reduce travel by car for work. But now, does that theory and that strategy work for people who are taking their kids to school? I don't think it does, but I'm not a city planner. So, but anyway, as a person who gets around on foot and public transport, I'm just going to put it on record that I'm not a fan of bike lanes, because it means I've got to concentrate more. I actually have to look twice. I have to look twice in the same direction. So when I'm crossing the road, I have to look once for traffic coming as a bike, and then I have to look once for traffic coming as a car. And as someone who likes to cross the road wherever they bloody well please, that means I'm at 4 times the risk now of being hit by something coming in both directions, as opposed to just looking out for cars. Because I'm a bit of a rebel when it comes to crossing the road. I like I like doing my own thing. I'm not a jaywalker. Anyway, so another great example of COVID is these netball courts. Yes, netball are normally overflowing for 3 to 4 hours during the day with office workers playing lunchtime, competitive lunchtime netball, mixed netball competitions. Part of their the way they socialise at work, or the way they let off steam um, during the day at work. Normally, there's so many people in these gardens. These are almost my number one favourite gardens in Melbourne. I've certainly spent a lot of time walking through them this last 4 years for reasons that aren't really relevant to this video commentary. And also, there's an elite Melbourne high school uh, to the right of camera on Queen Street, which has suddenly, I've noticed, they use these gardens, which are public gardens. The school doesn't own the gardens, but they use these gardens in the morning before 8 o'clock as if it was an oval for student um, uh, physical education classes. And I have a bit of a bee in my bonnet about that topic, because I don't really feel that public space, which is public parkland, is necessarily the right place to take kids' sport, to be used for private school sports. I think that's enough about that. But that's a Radisson, and the Radisson Hotel has been closed since. That is a hotel. That is a 4 to 5 star hotel. Um, Normally extremely busy, and again, this is a weekday morning, and the Radisson Hotel also is a common destination for international flight crews coming from Tullamarine International Airport to do their rotation, have their rest and recreation, to recuperate and rejuvenate before they have their next shift, board the next flights. But the Radisson has not made it through COVID. I don't know that they've actually shut down, but like a couple of the other really big international hotels in Melbourne, they've just simply shut up shop, basically. And they've probably, the Australian federal government has a worker payment scheme called JobKeeper, where an employer can uh, be eligible for payments from the government. The government essentially is paying the wages or part wages of the staff for the business being affected by COVID now, which is hopefully the Radisson will get back up and running. Now we're into the last, and we're already hit 3 hours 7 minutes, so the video is going to end soon. I'll just finish off by commenting that the reason for this infrastructure in the gardens is because at the same time as COVID is running, and at the same time concurrently with the Melbourne Metro tunnel construction works, there's other train infrastructure works going on around Melbourne where the state government is removing a lot of level crossings that the traffic being impeded by trains behind boom gates. That's being removed. So these are replacement buses for the trains being offline. So I'm going to finish up there. I'm the bloke who walks. This has been This Walking Life. I want to thank you for watching. video, whether it was 30 seconds or 30 minutes. If it was 3 hours, God love you. Please consider making a donation so I can upgrade my camera. I really enjoy making this video content. I think there's a demand for it. I sense that there's a market for it. If you're looking for content to license through your particular online distribution platform, it's available as well. So I'm the bloke who walks, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.
Welcome to This Walking Life. This morning we're in Melbourne, Australia. Thanks for watching this video. Perhaps you're the parent of an international student who's considering coming to Melbourne in Australia to study for their tertiary degree or the vocational education. I can offer a lot of information about safety in Melbourne, how to live in Melbourne, how to find accommodation in Melbourne, how to travel safely around Melbourne. This Walking Life, it offers a lot more. It offers information about culture, sport, arts, events, food, lifestyle, hospitality, and most importantly, how to get around. And I'll be delivering that on a regular basis to this channel. I've seen many international students enjoy studying and living in Melbourne, and I have no doubt that your children will as well. Some of the institutions that I'll be featuring on This Walking Life are Victoria University, Melbourne University, RMIT University, Box Hill TAFE and Monash University. And of course, I can cater for any special request. I also have a deep and broad knowledge of the international tertiary sector in Melbourne and Australia. I know many of the main players. I know how to network within that. Australia has proven itself to be one of the best equipped to deal with the challenges presented by the coronavirus epidemic. And in this coronavirus environment that the world is currently going through and dealing with, you can be sure that Australia, in particularly Melbourne and Sydney, Australia is one of the safest places that you can be living. Today is the 6th of November 2020. It was only 4 months ago that Melbourne recorded 725 active cases of coronavirus. The same day, 760 were recorded as active cases in Britain. You don't have to do too much research or be living under a rock to know what happened next. Melbourne has successfully stamped out the virus. As of today, we've had 6 days in a row with no active cases and no deaths. What better place to send your child in 2021 or any time in the future to study, knowing that they'll be safe, protected by Australia's pragmatic health and political leadership. Thanks for watching this video. The journey of 1,000 steps starts with a walk. If you and your child are considering studying in Australia, I hope you'll share that journey and that walk with This Walking Life. So subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.